If you spell it, I'll change it.
Hello, 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 everybody. Oh my gosh. Let's try that again. Hello, everybody. Don't know why we
Hey,
got the
what's going
echo.
on? Good afternoon.
Greetings, peace, and blessings.
Awesome, awesome. How's my panel doing?
Your panel. You mean the panel?
I'm feeling myself today.
There you go.
Sorry.
That's slave stuff. My.
How is everybody on the panel doing today?
Well, doing good. How
I
about
feel like
yourself?
a lawyer. That you sustained that, so I had to rephrase my question.
How you spell vocab? What did we say?
Vocabulary.
No.
You call it
Vocab,
a vocabularyologist.
vocabularyologist. Okay. Lady,
Yes.
can you spell that? Nope.
So not Kyle, Les is renaming everybody. I don't know why. So he's the letterologist. I'm smoking Nikki.
No. Smoke
Smoke
in.
and Nikki.
Smoking.
I said I'm smoking Nikki.
Elaine, I just sent it.
Emphasis. Who is gonna be one of them days? Emphasis on the end, I guess. And then Kyle is
KY on a
KY
cow.
Lee.
I got you.
KY Lee.
Here we go.
Hey, Wiley.
So y'all know how to change the name, right? Because he's gonna keep going until you change it. Anyway,
I just wanted to be known that I am making this change under duress.
because he gonna keep bothering you until you do it.
Come on, KY Lee.
Nobody's
Lord
going to know the
have
difference
mercy.
for the space and the capital L. After that?
At any rate,
Let me change
I hope our viewers are. I like the question mark.
Thank you.
All right.
That's dope.
When all you guys get calls from people who want you to render service to them and paying y'all big money, I want to cut.
Okay, who's gonna pay? What am I gonna get paid for? Smoking?
You're gonna teach people how to smoke.
Oh, okay. Well, that I can do. And when it's safe for the outsides, Elena and I gonna get together and I'm gonna teach her how to smoke.
Ain't gonna smoke.
Just one. One time. That's it.
One time.
One time. That's it. So.
I look forward to it. Smoking.
All right, y'all. Today we are going to talk about. Well, actually, we were requested. Okay.
Need the info. My apologies.
I'll
send you the email.
Okay, so we were requested to go a little bit deeper into buck breaking. Some people had never heard of it. Some people didn't really understand, what it was. So we are going to do a 3-part series on buck breaking. We're going to talk about the man, the woman, and the child. Today, we're going to talk about the psychological emasculation and trauma of the Black man. In regards to buck breaking and how through generations it is in a sense still happening now. So that's kind of what we're gonna be talking about. And I just want to throw this in here really quickly. So are you kidding me? It's not here? Sorry, y'all. I gotta add something. Y'all can talk. I need to add something to the whatchamacallit. I added it last night, but apparently it didn't save.
I'm about to sneeze. Hold on.
And my computer is frozen. Okay. Okay. God bless you.
Bless you.
Oh, my fault. I was supposed to mute that.
Okay. Oh, here it is.
I was doing some research last night, and one of the things that I ran across was cognitive behavioral therapy. You know, and the need for us in the Black community to jump on board with that.
What's it called again?
CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what exactly is that?
I mean, it's like this therapy, but you're dealing with, you know, your cognitive behavior, you know, why you do what you do, where did it come from?
Okay. That's
So,
interesting.
recommended for everyone.
Yes. Yeah.
So what do you suggest for a person that doesn't feel like they need it? What would be the impetus to get them to go, or what would they begin talking about?
I mean, if they don't want to go, they don't want to go. You know, this point blank, trying to convince people to get help nowadays is to me is a moot point. You know, if when you look in the mirror at the end of the day, you know if you need it or not. You know, I got out of trying to convince people to do what they needed to do for themselves. You know, but you know, I mean, I think everybody needs it.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good sales pitch for it, especially in our community, is I went for this, or I went through this and it helped me. You know, so giving a person a for instance, or I see this character trait in you, you're getting upset really easily and triggered by most everything. Maybe you want to, it helped X person out in my life. You know what I mean? So you'd almost have to give along with it. A lot of times when I talk about it and I believe in it, something dramatic has happened, or something where a person feels like they don't have any or don't have the correct answers.
Right. I got you. I just tell people, you know, if you need to talk to someone, and we all need someone to talk to. And when you become your own therapist, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Most times it doesn't work. You know, yeah, you need someone that's going to expand you a little bit more than you can expand yourself. So, but I understand what you're saying. I think after we talk about for the next 3 weeks, buck breaking and the psychological effect that it's had on men, women, and children, I think we'll all come to some type of understanding that in terms of cognitive behavioral therapy, we all need something. And be it if you're going to church to get it, but you know, going to church and trying to get therapy within a 2.5 hour, 3 hour sermon, you know, may not be the best answer for you. A lot of times we need that one-on-one. So.
Totally get it. In my sharing last week, I had a friend who had a similar thing happen to her, and when I was trying to get therapy, I felt like she needed it as well, because she had a lot of anger issues, and I just kept, you know, chalking it up as that's just who she is, this, that, and the other. And then once I got into therapy, I realized, no, that's basically her trauma talking. But to some people, they just don't want to deal with it. I don't know if it's that they don't want to deal with it, or if it's that they can't deal with it. But with everybody, you have to want it. You have to want the help, period. And there are a lot of people who don't want the help. To some people, it just might be too painful to live through again. So some people want to just push it to the back of their mind and pretend that it never happened. But like I said last week, trauma has a way of manifesting itself in different ways, rather it be in your relationships, your job, health wise. It's coming out because it's not meant to stay inside. And the sooner that people are accepting of that, I think the better off that they will be. I will say, in doing research for this topic, I've learned a lot about just how what happened has damaged the black community, um, in the way that, we raise our kids and the prison system and just a lot. And I didn't realize that it went back, to that. So with that, I just want to put this up because I'm going to be reading from quite a few resources today. So this is where some of the resources that we're going to be talking about have come from. So I want to put that up. Don't want nobody claiming that we're trying to plagiarize anything. But yes. So Lana, you got anything you want to add? You okay today, hon?
I'm a little under the weather, but I would say that I disagree with Leslie just a little bit. I think there are a lot of people who don't know that they need to talk to someone. I think oftentimes people normalize their trauma and they explain away their behavior. Um, they make excuses for themselves, and so they find themselves in cycles, and they're happy to continue to blame whatever's going on with them on external forces. I had to take my back when I had a truck, I had to take it to get a little nick repaired in the windshield. You know how sometimes you're driving behind big trucks on the highway and they kick up stones, so it kind of made a little impression, and I could see it, and I wanted to get it taken care of before it grew or that little crack started to
Yep.
form. So I took it in um, to have it filled in. And, they said, Miss Thomas, leave your vehicle with us for a couple hours, come back, you should be good. So it was in the shopping center. Say, great, I go shopping, I come back. They present me with the bill. It's more than I expected. I'm like, whoa, I thought, you gave me a price. This isn't quite what I expected. And they said, well, you had more than one hole. I become adamant. I'm like, look, I only saw one hole, so I don't know what you guys are talking about. They take me out to the vehicle, and the tech tells me, and I told him there's only one. I only saw one issue. He said, well, Ms. Thomas, that's because you were sitting from inside the vehicle. There were some things in your windshield that you couldn't see that could only be viewed from the outside. And sometimes we just need that external voice to say to us or to enlighten us on things that we either don't see or don't want to see every once in a while. So, yeah.
I get that, but you didn't give them permission to fix all of them. You gave them permission to fix one.
Well, I ended up not paying for it, but still,
I get you. I get you.
serious.
I get you. I'm like, hold up. Your point didn't go over my head. I just wanted to point that out. Like, hold up, you told them about one.
Yeah.
Well, now, how do you pronounce your name? Is it Eshe? Okay, welcome to the show, Eshe.
Hey, Eshe.
So, Kyle, you want to introduce your guest?
That's me.
I know. I said, do you want to introduce
You said Kyle.
I'm sorry, Les. My bad. I'm looking right at your name and calling Kyle my name. My bad. I'm sorry.
You're not pronouncing my name right.
Can we keep going? Les, please.
It's Shay.
It's Shay.
Shay is a nurse. I'll let her tell you about her credentials. You're in the wrong place to be shy with your mute button on. You know what I'm saying? Mute. Nurse, a doula, um, um, a vaccinationologist
No.
against a better judgment. But we were talking about buck breaking, and we were just Shay and I, we were just talking about the effect that it has on our DNA, you know, and epigenetics. And, you know, I wanted her to come on and give some facts about, you know, what has transpired as a result of, you know, the altering of DNA or RNA as it pertains to buck breaking.
Hmm.
Right. So I guess when you know, I guess we have any listeners today?
Yes, but we ain't worried about that.
Okay. All right, smoke, and that's all you see is smoke. So
It's
y'all
a
want to
pick
get
on
in?
Nikki day, I see.
You know, hey, got to make me feel loved. You know?
I'm good.
All right. So, you know, I've been seeing a lot of black men lately, and I know this has been happening, but I've been seeing a lot of black men over the last 3 months who are still wearing their pants below or to the point where it's showing their butt. And I'm talking about older men with kids, right? My question is that a fashion, a fad, or is that a mental thing?
Actually, I have something on that. Um, or were you asking a Shay? I'm sorry.
I'm just putting it out there. I mean, you know,
Okay.
yeah.
So I have something that I wanted to read, and this is what I learned. Um, so I put my glasses on because y'all know I can't see. Okay.
Big ass glasses. Damn, look at them big ass glasses.
You know what? Whatever.
Looking like the fly
You about to get muted. Okay, so the remnants of buck breaking is plaguing the black community through prison culture. Prison culture is the structure is identical to the design of a plantation. The intense environment is the same as well. Buck breaking is a method that was used by slave owners to strike fear in the witnessing slaves. The same procedure is used today. It is the process of brutality, beating an individual in front of a group of people to incite fear and the sense of dominance. There is a hidden part of buck breaking. During slavery, after the male was beaten, the slave master would rape him in front of a group of people, including the black man's wife and children. After the individual was raped, he was forced to wear his clothes below his waist as a signal to other slave owners that he was already broken. That same signal is a huge part of prison culture. I did not know that last part that after they were broken that they actually had to wear their pants like that on the plantation.
I didn't.
So that I was just like, wow. Um, I didn't I did not know that at all. So I just wanted to read that part before so
Yeah,
No,
so that kind of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
So that kind of speaks into, let me just give premise into how I came across epigenetics. It came across because I'm a doula, and we were trying to figure out, well, not figure out, but we knew that there was an association with trauma for the fetus in utero, and then how they come out as far as after that. And so, you know, a couple of meetings and it's
is she breaking up to y'all too?
Yeah.
Okay. She's frozen. All
That's a
righty.
shame because I could tell this was about to get real good.
I know, right?
That's what was happening to me last week.
Oh no. Okay. Let me um,
What I can fill in, not necessarily on her point, but a point that Les made, or he was asking, and it seems like clothes. If you look at sweatpants, the fit of them, like they're harder to keep up. I'll say that you have to keep pants, so tied at the waist where you didn't have to before. I've noticed that jeans also seem like the fit of them where you didn't have to wear a belt and you wouldn't have them sliding down, and now you do. So I don't know if there's something in the design structure. I know that they have, even if some jeans are around your waist, the pockets are lower, so it even has that perception of them, sagging.
Well, not in Baltimore. I mean, the guys that I see walking around sag intentionally, and they actually wear belts. They use
Right.
to hold their pants in the exact position where they want them to rest beneath their buttocks so that we can see their unmentionables.
That's cray cray.
I mean, I also, to what you read, Nikki, I also read that another sign was that the slave owner would tear the man's clothes or put holes
Mm-hmm.
in the buttocks area of the clothes as a sign to others. Um,
Right.
but yeah, the prison thing brings up a completely different conversation. Wow.
So I want to read an excerpt from the Willie Lynch letter. Now I know that there is controversy that the Willie Lynch letter um, is fake, and Willie Lynch, might have been a fictitious character, but the information in it is accurate. So I want to read an excerpt from it. So he talked about the differences to separate slaves by age, color, intelligence, sex, and size. Um, the black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self refueling and self generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old male. You must use. Ooh, is she back? It's saying that her device is not connected. So I don't know if she's having technical difficulties. Um, hang on. I'm trying to get her to connect, and y'all let me know if she pops up, okay? Hey Allison, how you doing? She's coming in. I'm trying to wait so I can add her before I start reading again. um, okay, she'll pop in when I just wanted to add her, so she'll pop in when. And now we lost Les. Lord have mercy, what is he over there doing? Allison saying, "Hey everybody."
Hi, Allison.
Okay. All right. When we get these technical difficulties, then I'll go ahead and finish reading. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So Shay will pop in, I guess, if she's got Wi-Fi or something, she might not. She might need to get a better signal. So where was I? Okay. So we talked about pitting the. Okay. All right. So it says you must use the dark-skinned slaves against the light-skinned slaves, the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the females versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. It is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control them. use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful of each other. Then he goes on to say, let's make a slave. What do we need? First of all, we need a black nigger man, a pregnant nigger woman, and her baby nigger boy. Second, we will use the same basic principle that we use in breaking a horse, combined with some more substantiating factors. What we do with horses is that we break them from one form of life to another. That is, we reduce them from their natural state in nature. Whereas nature provides them with the natural capacity to take care of their offspring, we break that natural string of independence from them and thereby create a dependency status so that they so that we may be able to get from them useful production for our business and pleasure. Both a wild horse and a wild wait a minute, yeah, both a wild horse and a wild or nature nigger is dangerous even if captured, for they will have the tendency to seek their own customary freedom, and in doing so might kill you in your sleep. You cannot rest. They sleep while you are awake and are awake while you are asleep. They are dangerous near the family house, and it requires too much labor to watch them away from the house. Above all, you cannot get them to work in this natural state. Hence, both the house and the nigger must be broken. That is breaking them from one form of mental life to another. Keep the body, take the mind. In other words, break the will to resist. Now, the breaking process is the same for both the horse and the nigger, only slightly varying in degrees. Take the meanest and most relentless nigger, strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, the female, and the nigger infant, tar and feather him, tie each leg to a different horse faced in opposite directions, set him afire, and beat both horses to pull him apart in front of the remaining nigger. The next step is to take a bullwhip and beat the remaining nigger male to the point of death in front of the female and the infant. Don't kill him, but put the fear of God in him, for he can be useful in future breeding. So I got a lot out of that. Um, the mindset of when they talked about pitting the age, the young versus the old, and then the light versus the dark. It made me think of the movie School Days, but that's how it was. I believe it was in the 80s when I was in school. It was like all the light skinned guys were considered cute and the dark skinned guys were considered unattractive. Um, there was just to me a lot of similarities of today versus back then. And now that we've got, a Shay, I'm just really wondering if that's part of the genetics.
I was told after I was on, I heard I was gone. So I was in my home trying to get back to y'all's space. I don't know what y'all said. So y'all gonna have to refresh what y'all said to me.
I was just reading part of the Willie Lynch letter, but
Yeah.
I really wanted to hear what you had to say. I was just trying to fill in while you were until you
Oh,
got back.
well, thank you. So the whole premise of it is that in utero, 9 months, a fetus, with all the hormones that the mother produces, any type of stress hormones, cortisol, I can't think of them off the top, but any type of stress hormones that the mother is experiencing goes into the fetus. And so studies have shown that when a mother is overly stressed, and it could be just living while black, it could be stressed about anything. Um, Babies come out more irritable. They come out more depressed as far as going into adulthood. There's changes in their neuro. I think it said neuro. I took some notes, y'all. Neuro. Where is it at? Neural behavioral and temperament. So it in correlation to that, just imagine generation of generation of generation of generation. And so what the theory is that now you're having people's epigenetics being changed, and is different than genetics as far as or DNA. Epigenetics is what it tells the DNA to do. It dictates the behavior. So now you're talking about overcoming stuff that's genetically in you based upon your experience, based upon behaviors that you've had. And so it was really interesting to me with this buck breaking. A lot of stuff I'm not surprised about, a lot of stuff that's going on, because of those factors that we have to overcome. And one of the things, because I do watch y'all. I watch y'all quite a bit. But one of the things I remember, I mean, when we and us were talking about this, as far as everything begins with slavery, that's one of the points. You know what I mean? And I think we as people, that's an accessible point where we start to identify the trauma for us to deal with. But the other accessible point for us to kind of look at is that we had a life before slavery. We had genetics before slavery. And what are we doing to access those points, to kind of change our, knowing that, what are we doing to kind of change the behavior, the mindset? Because we do have, like, we're all from kings and queens. We survived the Middle Passage. We're the strongest of all of us. So what are we doing to kind of access all of that? But we have to be aware of where it came from. Is that good?
It makes sense. Just that's why they tell pregnant women to just remain calm, um and I would notice that when I got upset or something when I was pregnant, my daughter would like start being real active, real move, and but I never thought that, you know what I mean, that what I was feeling, like she was feeling.
Yeah.
So that that makes sense.
And even hearing, you have to think about when they're in utero, even though they may not distinguish, they don't know words, but they know energy.
Mm.
Everyone knows energy, bad energy. And so when you're in a negative environment, and maybe it's you're hearing a lot.
No, come back. Hello.
Let me jump in and ask a question.
Okay.
Listening to what she was saying, I heard that when cows are being lined for slaughter or to be slaughtered, that the cow that's behind the cow that's being slaughtered actually feels that trauma.
Mm.
And they carry that trauma with them up until the point of their execution, which means that that energy is in them. And then we eat that. Oh, excuse me. I don't
Eat beef, so go ahead.
then humans eat that. They're eating that stress and they're eating that trauma. And I've also heard that with the case of people if they have a stroke or if they die sometimes a horrible death, you can see it on their face. That that's how they die, and you can see that. And I was just thinking, with buck breaking, and because I don't believe that type of culture was within us until the enslavement period or enslavement process occurred. I don't think, left alone, left to our own devices, I don't think that this is the behavior that we will be actually carrying out based on the history that I've read regarding where we come from and how civilized we were, and we're influential in teaching others how to become civilized themselves.
I can agree with what Ashay said about the babies and energy, because after I had my daughter, I suffered from postpartum, and every time I could be really still, sitting there, chill. No, you are not in my garage. I'm sorry. I got a thing with spiders, and it's a big one making a web. Anyway, um, I could be sitting on the couch really still, not upset, and the minute I held her, she would start crying because she felt my energy. She felt that I was uneasy, um, and I didn't realize that I had postpartum. And I called my doctor like, my baby hates me. What is the problem? And so she was like, come in for an appointment. Come to find out I had postpartum. And she said, this is normal. And then she was explaining to me that babies feel this, that, and the other. Like her dad could hold her, my mother could, everybody could hold her. She was fine. The minute I held her, she started crying. So it wasn't until I got help for the postpartum that I was actually able to hold her. Like I couldn't even nurse her because she would just like she would cry and she would push, and it was just like, and it made me feel worse because I'm going through postpartum. I don't know what's going on. But once my doctor explained everything, I was like, oh, okay. So once we got me the help that I needed and stuff started to mellow out, then it was I could hold her without her crying. So it's I always say babies are like the best judge of character, I feel. And I feel like if a baby, you know how you see somebody holding a child and somebody's like, "Oh, let me hold them," and the baby starts crying, and then the parent might try to take them back, and they're like, "Oh no, they'll be okay." I would be like, "No," because obviously the baby feels something that we might not feel. So I never let, if I went to give her to somebody and she was hesitant, I wouldn't let them hold her.
Well, I do think Shay lifted up a really salient point about the fact that there was a BS or before slavery um, point in time that is up for us to really take a look at and see, like, how do we get back to that place. I think it's interesting that um, in a conversation about genetics and human DNA, we don't use all of our genes. You know, there's some unused genes that scientists have just called like the God gene. And I'm curious, like, what is or what is innate or already resident in us that we could use for our benefit that we aren't using? You know, are there ways that we can begin to reverse the effects of
Hmm.
um, all of these years of, you know, trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma?
But how would we go about doing that?
That's a great question. I think she, you know, the point is, where were we before, you know, really understanding where were we before we were slaves? Um,
Mm.
I don't want to pitch it again, but the book that I speak of
S-
often,
the SBA
Reinventing
book.
the African Mind.
Okay.
I think we have to look back at, like, who were we before slavery?
Hmm.
Um, Creating an identity for ourselves that is like understanding that slavery is a part of our history, but creating an identity that is separate and apart from that trauma. You know, instead of allowing the trauma of slavery to define us,
Hmm.
to really get in touch with who are we really. If Jermaine was on here, he would say we're not Slavians, and so we were not slaves anyways. But you know, shout out to Jermaine.
Hey,
You
Jermaine,
know,
wherever you are.
but yeah, I think that's the question. Like, how do we define who we were before this traumatic experience? How do we get back there?
I think that's a very good point. Focus on more positivity.
I think we have to be aware. I think it's a great point. Be aware of all of the tentacles from slavery. You know, all the things that we juggle right now, from police brutality to redlining. Um, I mean, all of these different factors. Not really knowing who we are, being mixed up in slavery. Your mother being shipped to another slave plantation, your father here and your brother here. That's also a trauma you carry of forward. We carry as a community forward. So I think to the point, we have to be able to identify the different things that are going on, like the buck breaking, why we sag our pants, why is it happening in prison, and maybe prison reform in that regard, and identify these different things to even actualize them, and then try to make a change where they need to be altered.
Okay, so Miss Brown Eye says, I know my mother's always shared with me when I was pregnant that a negative energy, that any negative energy a child can inherit it in ways that will change them behaviorally. Um, these are all proven facts that have come from past experience, wives' tales, if you will. And hey, boo, boils down to rudimentary educating ourselves.
Les, you're on mute, but I
Hmm.
think you didn't
Yeah.
intend to.
Does Boo have a name?
Yes, Gervais.
Gervais, what people call Gervais? I can't call a grown man Boo. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but I don't know if you want to read that right quick, Nikki, before we
Yep.
get to it.
Um, she also mentioned that even when breastfeeding, it can cause issues for the child. It's like poison, literally. Yeah.
Um, and just think about that. Even from breastfeeding, from holding a child.
Hmm.
Um, if we're going back, going back to the effect that buck breaking has had on men, and how we as black men govern ourselves now, in 2021, it seems as though we're becoming progressively worse than we were 5, 15, 20 years ago. And the reason why I say that is because most people would say that with having a black president, having black officials, the that has been made for us being allowed.
Can't hear them.
Can't hear you. Like there's interference.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we hear things like, you got a black president. What else do you want? Yes.
You have a fan on?
No.
Okay, say something again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm getting interference from somewhere. I don't know where.
Yeah, I'm hearing it. With the potential progress that has been made, the progress, it seems as though we would be much further than where we are now. Having a black president, to me, is not progression in terms of the black man and where the black man stands. Once again, as I said earlier, it seems as though we are becoming progressively worse than we were 15, 20 years ago. The fact that we understand where this sagging concept comes from, and that you still have people who are literally walking around showing their butt, that's ridiculous to me. So it's got to be something in our DNA.
I think it's like, you know how interest compounds? I think it's like compounded trauma. So even though in some ways you would expect the trauma or the impact of the trauma to dissipate over time, to some degree it is exponentially growing as well, because people are so far removed, one, not only from the trauma, but before the state, the knowledge and the understanding before the trauma took place.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say what you said, I mean, Nikki said it at the top of the show, a lot of people don't even know what buck breaking is. So to explain to a young man, to say to a young man, pull your pants up, just goes over his head, has no clue of the implications of his traumatic history in his present day experience. But that is very much real and felt. We are getting worse and worse and worse. Beyonce has a song, or had a song, I think this was off of her first album, but she basically says that she wants her unborn son and her husband to be like her daddy. Now, I don't know, she may alter or amend that today, given what her daddy has done in the news. I don't know, but I can say for myself that I could, that song for me, I was like, yeah, I want the greatest compliment that anyone would ever be able to give to me about a man that I marry, and the characteristics and qualities and ethics that he has, and a son that I could raise, is that he could be like my dad. But when I look at men like my dad and men of his era, like, and even like my grandfather in his era, like, things have changed. And look, we're talking about men today, so this is not giving women a pass in any way, because the
No,
same.
we're getting on them next week.
Yeah, hold on, y'all got a week. It will be right here, because Black womanhood is in the same state. But yeah, I agree with you, Les. Worse and worse and worse, and it's like the trauma just compounds and is growing exponentially.
Gervais says it's a lack of self pride.
Yeah, and he's right. But where does this originate from? And I think we know that it originates from slavery. And I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna go back to some things that I always say, and and I'm gonna add to it. It's with me. It starts with slavery, and with Nikki, no, with me it all starts with slavery, and with Nikki it all goes back to therapy. You know what I'm saying? No, that ain't mine, by the way. I'm not going to tell you if Elena sent it to me or not. But anyway, now let's get a shade on before she mess around and go dark on us again in the 21st century. She's still fading to black on us.
I'm telling you, if I was watching Power, I wouldn't have these problems. I'd be streaming it all. It would all be coming to me very smoothly. The fact that I'm dropping information, we sharing this information, it's like, okay. What's your question? What do you have to say?
I mean, we were basically trying to piggyback off of what you were saying. You'd be leaving us hanging and shit. You know what I'm saying? But
no. So think about it. If you have the definition of what Nikki said with buck breaking, right? So you have these men who are broken, and then they have to show that they're broken, right? By having their buttocks hanging out, right? And we're talking about epigenetics being an expression of how your behaviors, like innately, you don't know why you do it, you just kind of do it. Your behaviors, and so it explains this generation of young men doing what they're doing, and so it takes that strong mama, that strong daddy, that strong family to kind of say, this is what you're not going to do, and you to kind of, I guess, bypass that strong urge to, because of what your genetics are telling you that it's okay to do, or it's the only way you're going to survive. You know what I mean? That gets very deep when you're talking about survival stuff. And then you have it where maybe it's the only way you fit in. If your pants ain't hanging down, maybe that's the only way you fit in with I don't know, with brothers now. I mean, especially the young folk.
But with the
So
epigenetics, does it skip generations? Because let's say that you are a descendant of a slave that was buck broken. So, but your the person's dad and granddad didn't wear their pants below their butts, but now that the son or the grandson is. So does it skip generations, or like, I guess I'm trying to figure out how you would go from the slavery times, to now.
I mean, I think that's a wonderful question. I don't know. Who knows why people who are parents of alcoholics and if I have like if my mother's a heavy drinker and me and my sister see this, and then I become a heavy drinker, but she doesn't, or then maybe my children never see what my mother does, and then all three of them are heavy drink, are alcoholics. No one knows, but the whole purpose is for me is, and I'm more of on the spiritual side of things, is to have that understanding. If you have an understanding of where you come from, then you can kind of access other things, other routes, because to me it doesn't look attractive to see young men's buttocks hanging out. And then now that I know that it went back to that, do they know, would, if they had the information, if young men had the information, would they care enough to change? You know what I
That's
mean? We know the
really
definition of dozens. Do we still joan on each other? So it's a good question.
thank you. So
Where,
Miss
where does go ahead, you can answer that. You
um
can, then
it
I'll
says if you think of it scientifically, we are made of we we are made by different elements. If our composition is disturbed in any way, our outward makeup will be altered. Just like baking, add too much of something or don't add the right amount of anything will ruin the outcome. Are you gonna say less?
where does is this the Shay, is this physical or spiritual? Where does sperm come into play with this?
Well, it's half of your genetic makeup. So you have 23 chromosomes from the male, 23 chromosomes come from the female. So it's half of your genetic makeup. So the egg and the sperm come together and make the 46 chromosomes. And when you have anything off of that, that's when you get like Down syndromes, any type of abnormality. So it just depends on, and it's all a spin. You have billions of sperm going to meet this one egg, and the likelihood of all that happening is one. It's a miracle. But who knows? That's God. That's God stuff.
So what is it that you say you are again?
Oh my goodness. I don't. Whatever I
No,
need. Okay, so I'm
you.
RN. Just let me RN.
Mhm.
RN. I work as an RN. I did some comedic yoga. Like I have a comedic yoga instructor, so I can teach comedic yoga. Let's see. I was a doula. I still am
Yeah.
a doula.
What is a
Um,
doula?
so a doula is someone who helps someone um, with birthing. Not a
Okay.
midwife. A midwife catches the baby. A doula helps with the mind space of how you want your birth to be, kind of, sort of,
Hmm.
and how to facilitate that.
Okay. That's what I was going for. I knew it was a word. I didn't want to say the wrong word. That's why I asked that question. So thank you.
No worries. Hmm.
I think if I can, the thing that kind of spawned this conversation was the trailer from the Hidden Colors produced movie that's coming out called Buck Breaking. But in a um, previous movie they had done, I think it was called Hidden Colors. I can't remember. I think there are 4 installments. Not sure which installment this piece was in, but it talked about at least here in Maryland, where on the Eastern Shore, once the import and export of African peoples to be enslaved was abolished, they started setting up plantations, plantations, basically. And so, as a person who has lived in several states and has lived in the state of Maryland for some time, one of the things that I find interesting is the high percentage of people that I encounter and have encountered in ministry and have encountered within the system who persons of color who've dealt with issues of incest. Um, I don't have any numbers to back this. Maybe I should look them up, but experientially, I would say that the numbers, as it relates to people who have been impacted by incest here in Maryland really kind of feel off the charts. So I was working in a group home for boys ages 9 through 12. They were all labeled sexual predators. And of course, all of them have been violated in some way. Most of them have been involved in certain incestuous relationships. And so it's just interesting to kind of see the parallels between what happened hundreds of years ago, and at least through my eyes, and of course it's my own opinion, but to see the present day impact, because I would say that in this geographical regional area, that's a huge issue. And I will say, Les, I think that one goes back to slavery.
I didn't know that, Atlanta.
Yeah.
Mm.
I worked at a juvenile facility in Baltimore, and I was on the sex offenders unit, and these were kids, and they were victimized, and then they became predators themselves, you know. And just going through and reading the case studies of what happened to them and what they enacted on others at such a young age was crazy, you know. I mean, it's sickening. You know, there are days in which you can't even eat before reading the case study.
Wow.
You know, and just watching, and it's amazing because my approach is not to always pounce on someone. You know, I mean, I'm trying to get the understanding, and the youths had took issue with me because I was a nice person. Nice, I won't say nice, but I was a pleasant person. You know, so let me give you a quick story. There was, one of the youths that was there. It was the morning time, and he refused to get out of bed. Okay, and there's so many levels that we have to take them through before we can actually. And I was working with some cats, and they were big, and it seemed like they was ready to go. They were charged. They were really ready to, put their hands on this guy. And I'm seeing all of this, and I'm watching the guys take their rings off, and they're taking off their bracelets. And I said, "Yo, give me 5 minutes with him before you do anything." And fortunate for both of us, they listened. So when they left, I sat down beside his bed. I said, "Yo, you know what's going to happen. You know what they're going to do to you if you don't get up." And I talked to him for a couple of minutes, and he finally got out of bed. So I'm going to tell you what his situation was. His father had put his penis in his mouth and urinated in his mouth. That's the type of abuse.
Gosh.
Okay. So couple that, because I don't think it's just stopped there. Because if you're doing that to a young male, you're probably punching him, verbally abusing him and physically abusing him. So them threatening to put their hands on him, that's love to him. You know what I'm saying? That's what he's accustomed to. But that moment, he transcended from that past behavior and moved into a higher level of consciousness to where he didn't have to get hurt and body slammed. I mean, this was the same guy who had put his head almost through the glass, So pain, I don't know, pain felt good to him. So going back to that type of behavior, where did we get this from? And I'll say it all started with slavery. For a man to put his penis in his son's mouth, not just a random boy or female, his son's mouth, and then to urinate in it. See, that's a different animal right there. So that's just one of the stories. There are much, much more, and they weren't even 18 years old.
That is so heartbreaking. Nobody should be subjected to
Uh,
that. But
and he was white.
The son and The son and the dad were
Son,
white.
yeah, this was a white guy.
But I had a realized we're talking about this, and I think that's one of the reasons. Like I saying something loaded weapon. I take white folk with a grain of salt. You know what I mean? I can't, like, what did they say? Don't throw them as far as you can see them, and that's with everybody, but with white folk in particular, because we have that history of trauma epigenetically and within us, right? And they have that same system of like terrorization within their genetics. You know what I mean? And so it takes a certain level of person, whether it be African American or European or whatever you want to call them, to kind of bypass all of that genetic programming. And so for me, it was just interesting to think about, back in the day, dating a white man or something like that, or going to the other side because of this stuff. But for me, I have a soft spot when it comes to children, and I feel like once you harm a child, even as a child, you have to take certain steps to kind of be put back into society or be put back in the realm of children. And I understand that victims become predators. I'm well aware of that. But I also think when you make certain decisions, when you make decisions based upon whatever reason, then you have to follow the consequences of those all the way down the line, either for healing, whatever, you can't be around children anymore, whatever that is, you have to follow the line. And so my heart is always, whether it be white, black, Puerto Rican, whoever it is, I always feel when a child is harmed, that totally alters who you are as a person, and you have to be able to overcome all of that. This is a deep subject, y'all.
Um, there is in um, the sciencemagazine.org, right? And I'll give you the title in a second. But this was the abstract. A father's lifetime experiences can be transmitted to his offspring to affect health and development. So when I'm hearing that, I'm looking at all of the offspring that was fathered by white males during the slavery period. Your Thomas Jeffersons, your George Washingtons, and not the ones who came over, who were enslaved and then procreated. I'm talking about the women that were raped by all of these founding fathers or forefathers or these moral men, and all of that energy has been transmitted over to where we are now, because are we products of a white slave master?
Um,
There's no way to know, but we're probably more than likely products of a slave farm, a breeding farm. So that same trauma is going to be somewhere within us.
I want to read something real quick. It says, "Have you ever wondered how it is also possible that despite our brutal history, whites are now perceived as being collectively of the highest ethics and morals in human society? Such a
Mm.
contradiction is most inconceivable. Some may even perceive it as insane. But what explains such a profound contradiction? The answer to this perplexed question isn't very difficult at all. For the reason for this immense contradiction is not because Black people are foolish or forgetful, as some have stated. The reason for this grossly inaccurate favorable perception of whites is because the ruling class whites have revised history. Black people have been deliberately miseducated to forget their historic brutal mistreatment committed by the white race and have been made instead to admire whites."
Mm.
I thought that was very telling. And then it says, moreover, it is blinded from us all from truly seeing the collective white psyche as it really is. The collective white psyche is rarely, if ever, examined, particularly regarding their predisposition for racism and greed of power. For their positions of power, they examine and label all other races as they see fit, but rarely, if ever, do they evaluate themselves or are evaluated by others. The fact is that within the collective white psyche, there is profoundly entrenched predisposition for racism that is matched only by their proclivity for deceit, greed, and hunger for power.
May I? As you were reading that, I was thinking about what we were talking about last week, and in the chapter 12 of post-traumatic black spasms disorder. And it says, here are a few indicators of how to detect PTBSD in black people. And one of them was, and this is just how I feel, when black people find it difficult to embrace African culture. I'm not from Africa. You know what I'm saying? I don't look like that. And it's like, what you mean? You may not have come from Africa in terms of being transported, but what do you mean you're not from Africa? Or, Nikki, you were saying how we look at the white races, I'll say being superior, or we admire them. One of them was they view a pro-black school of thought as a promotion for racism instead of self-identification. I've heard many black people say, I don't want to hear that black stuff. There you go with that black talk again. I don't want to hear that. Yet these are the same people that will literally watch white TV all day long. My mother is a big fan of Westerns. And I know she identifies with the Westerns because that was the era where she grew up. But I get tired of seeing white folks kill each other all the time on the Westerns. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they shoot somebody in front of the sheriff and nothing happens. And I'm just watching her as she's watching these Westerns, and she really identifies with it. And we sat down last year together and watched Malcolm X, right? She's never seen it before. The Spike Lee movie. And we watched it, and when it got to the point where Malcolm got assassinated, instead of her being like, wow, that's sad, the first thing that came out of her mouth was, see, black people, they do it to you all the time. And I'm like, come on, mommy, come on. That's the only thing you got from that? No empathy? You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
No empathy whatsoever.
Here's a question. Today we're talking about buck breaking and the emasculation of the black male. That's the topic, right?
Yeah.
So I was reading Shahrazad Ali's book, The Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man. And there's a section where she talks about anal sex, which is basically one of the core pieces of the buck breaking process. And what she says is that for everyone, whether it's a man or a woman, there's something that is intensely intimate about anal sex that is not true of vaginal sex. And then, of course, for men, it's not quite the same with penetrating a woman. And so she talks about this state of almost childlike vulnerability. And I'm curious to know if a person has been whipped to the point of not being able to respond and placed in the most vulnerable, intimate place, how does that then affect Black men's ability to be intimate moving forward? If I was traumatized in a place of intimacy, how does that affect my ability to be intimate with other human beings, not just sexually, but emotionally and mentally? How does that affect my ability to be intimate, to allow myself to be vulnerable moving forward.
May I answer that?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie American Me? No? American Me. Nikki, you might want to throw that up. There's a scene where I forgot his name, but he used to be the police chief on Miami Vice. He goes.
Edward James almost.
Yes. He goes.
Oh yeah, I have seen that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He goes to juvie. First night in juvie, he gets raped. The first night, he gets raped. Okay? So they speed up. He gets out of jail. He meets a female. So their first intimate encounter, they did it, missionary, and then violently, he flips her over like a pancake and shoves it in her. Anally, right? I mean, she was in pain, but she was able to understand where he was coming from. So I'm gonna try to answer that because I can't answer that in terms of experience. But one thing I do want to add is, Elena, is it has to affect, because what happens that when the slave master is penetrating another male to the point of ejaculation. So now you have another male, you have a male with sperm inside of him. And then later on, so it's altering him. And what happens when he goes and he has to procreate with his mother?
Or his sister.
Or his wife? Or what happens when, and for a second, let's go to the female, when she's being penetrated by more than one slave master, or her husband and slave master. So now you have the sperm inside her fighting and jockeying for position, which is now a part of her DNA. So as a Black man, I would say that being humiliated like that, it would have an adverse effect on my ability to be intimate or vulnerable and open up without even knowing where it all stems from.
That was a deep question, Elena. Deep question. Kyle, you got anything to add to that?
In listening to Let's Talk, it was being put in that position with the buck breaking. You can see your level diminish as a man. I'm trying to, imagine experiencing that. And then if you are married and your wife watches that, I mean, she might have known I couldn't help her or protect her anyways, but this really shows her that the master is in control of everything. I can't do anything anymore to save you than our child can. And so that emasculation, must tear at your soul or your mind as a man. And going forward, I can't imagine what those steps would be to put yourself in a normal state of being or an altered state of being where you're able to cope with that. But it is, to the point, it's hard to put yourself in that situation where you can even imagine how you would, continue on with your life anyway, any sort of normal. You're going to have a new sense of normal, and that may be very far from who you were before the incident.
Right. I mean, even void of the act of rape, I just think that and this isn't just for men who enjoy the physical company and presence of other men, but there's some men who like to be anally penetrated with women with a finger. But I'm just saying that state, that space is a very intimate one, and to have something that intimate violated, it has to have some type of um some type of effect on you.
Hey, Cirillo, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you all?
Hello, the cigar smokeologist. Where you been?
I've been okay. I've been good. How about you?
Right, that's your new name.
Les
Cigar
is reaching
smokeologist.
everybody.
The cigar,
I walked into something heavy here, huh?
yeah, yeah, it is paid.
So Gervais says dehumanization.
Um, yeah, all of that. I mean, and I think let's go back to intent, if we can, or let's talk about intent, as Elena said. I guess the intimate act between a male and a female, and if the male is into that, you know, um, going, I guess is based on intent. To introduce what they were doing, their intent was to dehumanize, as Gervais said, to debase. And I don't know, because I wasn't there back then, not that I know of, what I'm saying? I could have been. But what happens when, because what I've heard, and I know once we talk about, I guess in the third or fourth, we talk about the family, what happens, how is the black man looked upon from his wife and kids to see that he's being beaten and dehumanized in that way? Especially if you're coming from Africa, and then you come over here, the next thing you know, they're introducing all types of different practices that, weren't demonstrated back then or back in those days. How does, and I think that has spilled over and carried over now, because from my understanding, if the black woman is upset with the black man because the black man did not protect her, if that's the case, because from my understanding, um, being tied up as a man, and seeing your wife raped in front of you, and she's looking at you like, "Are you going to help me out?" But literally, his hands are tied, and that's the same thing. The movie, I think it was Crash, where
Yes.
at
Yes.
the beginning of the movie, where the brother gets pulled over by the police officer, and his wife is talking so much shit, you know, and how many times, like Dick Gregory said it. He said, you're driving down the street, and a police car drives up behind you, and you grab onto the steering wheel, and then they go around you, and then you're like, thank God. You're thanking God because you didn't do anything, but yet you are afraid. And there have been times in which black men have been in the car with their families. And these are men who actually ran their household and had the respect of their wives and children. But all of a sudden, they go from being this big, strong, tough guy to yes, sir, no, sir, and being called boy, and everybody got to be quiet in the house or in the car.
Gervais says once you've been violated in such a way, it has a profound effect on the individual in question. Oftentimes, it is repeated, he says, in an act of intimacy in order to somehow attempt to transfer the pain. But yeah, it was what was his
Question for him.
okay.
If the slave masters were transferring the pain, where did the pain come from? Their fathers?
I just think they were just sick. I think it was a way for they had sex farms, and I think that it was a way. Wait a minute.
But the sex
It's
farms were for us, right?
no. It says buckbreaking was so successful that it was made into a sex farm where white men could travel from plantation to plantation, feeding their sadistic homosexual needs. During slavery in the U.S., homosexual white slave owners would buy male slaves to engage in forced homosexual acts. The male slaves were purchased based entirely on the prerequisite of them possessing a large penis.
Hmm.
Maybe we was just talking about the continual trauma that was visited in our own communities that we visited on our own people as a result of
Okay.
having been violated. And so then the one who's been violated, then in order to release or transfer the pain, does the same thing to someone else
Yep.
that was done to them. That's how I read it.
Right. I mean, I got that. But if so we're repeating, but if that transference of energy is what it is, where did they get that pain from? Was that done to them? Because if they were turned on by the size of a male's penis, a black male's penis, right? Where did they get that from?
It's not rocket science, folks. Emasculate the individual to a point where they are humiliated in front of those whom they are to protect.
Well, it seems like it's more than just emasculating, right? There's a component of that, but there seems to also be a component of arousal and outside of emasculation. There's, and then there's also this thing where it's not safe to do amongst society because society that didn't see it as something that was okay,
Right.
right? So it's not that I'm actually a homosexual, right? It's that I'm emasculating this guy. Well, no, the reality is you were a homosexual, and but you couldn't be openly a homosexual during that time. I mean, there may be some components of that as well, right?
Miss Brown on it says the slave owner is more so doing it to control, intimidate because they are lacking insecure for various reasons.
Well, and you're talking about at that time the elites in America. So those people were having the most amount of land, had the most amount of wealth. These are probably business owners. So we're not talking about the masses. We're talking about the top 25, 10, whatever percentile that owned slaves. So in that same regard, if you look at it now, that top 10% of earners, you hear weird sadistic parties that they go to, some satanic, some, with pedophilia and things like that. So it's the same sorts of people in that regard. This is of course more left and more heinous in some varying degrees from those stories, but we're still talking about the elites where, I guess people get bored and do whatever.
I don't get it. I don't. I can't understand it. Fetishes, Kyle. Miss Brown now says fetishes. Yeah. And I think Darius talked about this last week when he talked about, how it was, in the Roman era and how, they would have these parties and things of that nature. So um I think it's both. It's control, it's satisfying, like Diana said, and Kyle said, their fetishes. Um, I think that it was them satisfying their fetishes under the guise of control. I think they kind of both intertwine with each other. Um, like I was reading earlier, they talked about how you had to do it to basically break the spirit of the slave so that they wouldn't try to kill them in their sleep or seek their own independence. So I think that they found a way to satisfy both through their sick fetishes. They figured, well, if I can break them, then I'm killing two birds with one stone, basically. Miss Brown Eye says, I think nowadays fetishes is what has evolved from that. Back then, it had to do with power and control only.
Nah, them bandits were nasty. They were nasty back then.
Yeah, there's stories of
not.
animals.
That's who they are. That's who they are historically. That's who they are prehistorically. So they just continuing to be who they are. That's what that is. Um, but there came a time in their society where it started to be frowned upon, but it was still very much who they that's who they are. But
What you
I do have a question considering how the black man is then put in places where he's emasculated in front of his family. And this question is to the men, do you think that affects today the black man's ability to be like really intimate with the black woman? Do black men feel like they can't really be open and raw and fully themselves with black women? I'm curious.
Hmm. Hey,
How
Kyle,
often
Cirilla,
how
who left,
often are you able to be naked,
I
like
think,
completely naked
and
and
Gervais?
feel safe? Feel like
yeah,
you're in a safe space where your manhood won't be questioned with a black woman.
I believe so. I mean, I think there are natural counterparts. So if you put 50, 100 people in an auditorium of all different races and from all different countries, that black woman is who we're naturally supposed to be with. I mean, who is going to look most like your mother and most like, or you have the higher probabilities of understanding your upbringing and things that you went through. So, I mean, more so that your question is a very deep one because you have to have a deep and intimate relationship with that person and not be dating and not, your goal has to be, long-term intimacy. But I think it's very possible. I think many black men experience that with black women successfully.
Cirilla?
Well, I don't know that they really connected to me. Uh, I believe that when I when I'm having an intimate moment, it's really about the moment and the experience between myself and my partner. So I don't really bring any other reservations into the bedroom. I'm really focused in on, look, we're about to have a good time. Let's enjoy that kind of thing. Um, and but the emasculation piece of it, it's not related to intimacy for me. That's a separate part of my being that's being attacked. Uh, that doesn't live in the same space that my intimate moments live. Uh, so the emasculation that happens so often, and it's so prevalent that it lives in a problem solving space in my mind. Whereas intimacy, making love and having a relationship that experiences the depths of what's capable, just is in a different space for me. So I never really have combined the two of those together for myself.
Les?
I don't know.
um,
Did I?
I
Am
don't.
I am I understanding the question properly? I don't know.
I'm not going to say you're not. I have a different perspective. I think it does, Elena. I think it does. Especially for black men who've grown up with mothers who've been verbally abusive to them, you know, and then if they or you take someone whose mother wasn't verbally abusive to them and they marry someone that comes from an abusive background. So the first time that a male opens up and becomes vulnerable and transparent, that's an opportunity to keep them in that space. And the first time you emasculate him, classic example, broke ass nigga, bipolar motherfucker, anything of that nature, it's an automatically shut him down, and he will not be vulnerable, transparent, and open again because it goes back to a form of buck breaking.
Okay,
Mm.
so I didn't understand it to be the emasculation coming from the partner that you were going to be intimate with. That I thought we were still in this, talking about the situation as though you are, for instance, you're out with your family, you're driving around, you get pulled over, a police officer treats you like shit in front of your family. How does that affect you in your intimate moments with your partner?
Mm. Okay.
That
I
was
mean,
where I was coming from with my answer.
So yeah, my
But
question.
if you're talking about,
Yeah, I don't think black men um, are as open as we would have been if the buck breaking incident did not occur. You know, I believe that prior to coming to the United States, we were in a position where we were more open. Roles were different. You know, um, the interaction was different. The structure, the unit was much different. And now we've been placed in a position where, and as you know, once the women begin to talk about, the effects of buck breaking on black men has affected them. But I think as when you start looking at when you hear those emasculating words and those in that term, because men's egos are very fragile. And a lot of times when I'm doing the energy reading and reading the letters, and I've been in the barber shop and I've had conversations with men, and I would say, "Oh, you're very sensitive," and they would challenge me, like ready to fight. No, I'm not. I say, "Yes, you are." No, I'm not. And then I had to explain to them that the type of sensitivity that I'm speaking of is not the fact that you're a punk. You know, I was actually giving you credit for being open a little bit to what's going on around you.
mm,
But but our machoism comes from the fact that we don't want to be taken advantage of.
mm. Miss Brown Eye says,
Hold on, one second. I want to get into a question. And I don't think the court system has done right by all black men. Now, certain black men, child support is child support. But I think once the court system emasculates black men
mm,
at the request of black women,
mm,
it goes back to I knew I should have never trusted that from the beginning. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? I'm not speaking from personal experience, but
mhm,
I know people who have gone through that and have been stand up men who did right by their kids. But the court system saw fit. And that's just a form of emasculation as well. As a matter of fact, it could be to me, it could be um, upgrading the welfare situation where take the black man out of the house. In the movie Claudine, and I'm finished with it. In Claudine, you mean to tell me that this man brings some garbage to his woman to enhance her life? A broken down iron that somebody didn't want, or a raggedy ass lamp that somebody threw out, and that's a violation? No. So to answer your question, you know, Elena, yeah, I think it has affected the way black men are open up and become vulnerable and transparent in relationships with black women. However, however, I've heard of cases where black men are very vulnerable and transparent when they're dealing with white women, and that's a shame.
mm.
You, my friends, have been updated by Les, the letterologist Browder. And on that note, I'm taking a break. I see y'all in about 22.
So Miss Brown Eye says, to clarify, is this question, so you mean they are dealing with someone who is currently emasculating or someone who has been emasculated in the past as a child or a young adult? Elaine, I think she was asking for clarification.
Yeah, so two things, 2 points of clarity. As it related to intimacy, Cirillo, I wasn't just speaking of physical intimacy. I was speaking of like emotional, um, intimacy as well. So there's that. I think that Les kind of touched on the second part of Miss Brown Eye's point as it relates to how sometimes having been previously emasculated, like maybe having a mother who is hypercritical or abusive, and or being in a situation with a woman currently with a woman who is emasculating and not supportive can affect the ability to be open as well.
Yeah, I
I
think
just,
I think I'm sorry. Is that can you say your name for me?
Ishay,
that's Shay.
Eshay.
Eshe, Eshe? Okay, thank you.
If it's an E,
Eshe,
it's an E.
thank you.
As a matter of
Go
fact, the
ahead,
E in
Eshe. I'm sorry. I was
the E makes the
No
first
worries.
E long.
So just in me analyzing the question, for brothers, I would think how could how can you ever be in a vulnerable space when you have a safe space at home, maybe, and if you have that peace at home, and at any given time you walk out the door, anytime, your life can be taken, you can be talked to any type of way. How can you shake that space and come back home clean? How does that happen? It takes, and then have the ability to get up and do it again day in and day out, right? And one of my biggest things I've always analyzed was being in that rat race. Uh, what is that called? You call it robbing Peter to pay Paul, foot to mouth, hand to mouth. That's how we operate in, and that's not all of us, but a great majority of us. And so, as a man, like if I'm thinking it from a man's perspective, and I have to provide, and my community is not giving me, I'm in a food desert, right? And I have to go out and work a job in which I know that I'm smarter than anybody else, but everybody bypasses me. And so I know I'm not bringing home enough, but my wife, my partner is still building me up, but I still got to go out and do that. And then I don't have time. One of the things I like that Nikki says is unload that mental baggage. So how can I expect my brothers to be at intimacy peak with me or not have some level of it? Now I'm not saying come home and um cuss me out and all that, all that type of stuff. But how can I expect true? How does that work when they have all that stuff that can happen in any given time?
And that's why I think it's important for women to be your man's peace, because, of what Ashay was saying, that, the black man has so much, to deal with, and then to come home and, to be, emasculated again in his sanctuary. I think it's important for, the black woman to constantly support, to gene him, to grow, enhance, nurture, and empower him, to give him that um that boost that he needs, to keep going, that motivation to keep going, because, like you said, Shay, when he steps outside, you're doing that rat race again, and every to me, everybody's home should be their sanctuary. Everybody's home should be their peace. When you come in the house, I know it's easier said than done, but to leave the world outside and to just, have your safe space at home. Less we're muting each other when we not talking because it's a lot of feedback.
Okay. Am I still muted? Okay. That takes a lot of practice, right? Family is supposed to be the shield from the chaos, not the chaos itself, right? So the interview with James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni, you guys got a chance to see that. They touched
Yes.
upon this. Even the interview between Will and Jada, I think the first one where Jada had cussed him out, and he's like, "Yo, we don't do that." That's one thing we don't do. But that's easier said than done in terms of the the home is the castle, but everybody is bringing their own shit to this, and a lot of people don't know how to operate outside of that shit. They like the chaos. They're agents of chaos, and that's all they know. And a lot of times when you see things are going smooth, someone always has to mess it up because peace is uncomfortable for a lot of people. So Ashay is right that when we step out, we may not return. We may not return. And not every time that a man steps out of his house, when he comes back, he's going to be greeted with hugs and kisses. It doesn't work like that. That's not reality. That only works when you're newlyweds, about 3 months. And then you're like, man, get off me, please. Man, this ain't number the Ritz. This ain't it ain't no Ritz no more. It's a cracker. But Elena didn't get that one. I know she didn't get it. I know she didn't get it. I can tell by her facial expression. But even with marriage counseling and we talked about the Jewish culture and how they vet one another. Elena didn't get it. Like we said, it's easier said than done. That like Nikki Giovanni said, she said to James Baldwin, she said, "Well, if you can go out and deal," this are her words, and smile and deal with that cracker, right? Why can't I get the same thing when I come home? She has a point. But everyone that's on this panel, no black, male or female, knows how it is dealing with that mentality. And it's to the point now where black women are being treated like black men. So you guys are catching hell as well. You guys are probably catching more hell than we are because they like, yo, we got them. You know what I'm saying? We got them. Now, let's focus in on the black woman. Unfortunately, going back to Shahrazad Ali, when she's saying that for black women to team up with feminists, that's not our movement. That's never been our movement. That's not ours. And for black women who have teamed up with feminists who want to disrespect and emasculate black men, adds to the narrative that black men ain't shit, which is not the case at all. So, I mean, it's a whole bunch, but our ability or inability to be intimate and open and transparent, a lot of that relies on the black woman. It's not their sole responsibility because we have to take ownership. Because if you come from an abusive mother and, you can be attaching yourself to a situation where you have a white woman who's going to love you, and then you have a black woman who could potentially dog you out. But because you are attracted to the abuse, you're going to go to the black woman and not the white woman, right? When in fact, the white woman could have been the one that would have opened you up. But from a cultural perspective, would have diminished you at the same time. I'm taking another 22 seconds on that one. You guys are draining me today. I ain't signed up for this.
So Miss Brown says, I think the problem is that in most of the relationships that have emasculating occurring, it isn't always done intentionally. I think some need to communicate with each other what they feel is emasculation, define it. And I really like this. Jermaine says, do we need peace or is it harmony? Peace is more internal. Harmony is between two or more. And women may view it as one thing, men may view it as another. I really like that, Jermaine, the harmony piece. And he says it is essential for each individual to define what represents peace for them and then create harmony between everyone. I like that, Jermaine. That's deep. I never thought about the harmony aspect, but
But
I,
now
I
we're
agree with that.
but now we're talking about EQ, right? The emotional quotient, right? We're talking about empathy, understanding, respect. Because if you don't have a high emotional quotient and someone comes to you and says, listen, I need peace, or hell, I need harmony. And a lot of times creating a harmonious environment is not involving yourself with that individual. You know, when we talk about EQ, Elena and I have been softly bumping heads for a couple of years now. And she's told me in so many times, you need to raise your EQ. You know, you got to raise it. And as I raise my EQ, my IQ kicks in, and I'm like this. Like all that shit. You know what I'm saying? You know, but without having that high EQ, it's hard to really understand where a person's coming from. Let me say this. And I patterned, this is what I say, and this is what every man should say, in my opinion, before they get married. Go back to my man Gil Scott Heron. And the song is Better Days Ahead. Just the black man's anthem, right? To marrying a black woman, right? It should be in a black woman's theme song. Just take my hand. You're the one I need to understand. With you, I can stand. As long as you respect me as your man, there'll be better days ahead for you and I. Because when they say happy wife, happy life, that's for white folks. You know what I'm saying? You know, happy spouse, happy house. You know what I'm saying? You know, so not just wife. No, I don't get that. So you got to make her happy. So if she emasculates you, continue to make her happy in order for you to be happy. It doesn't work for me. And on that note, I need another 22 seconds.
Jermaine says empathy and compassion could be crucial for us overcoming many of ills.
Look beyond the fault and see the need.
I guess to make a point, I have been emasculated for a significant period of time with my first marriage, and I didn't really realize it until after I got married. Yeah, now maybe I realized a little bit before I got married, but it was I didn't realize, or what I didn't see is that my ex didn't have the best relationship with her father. So I felt a lot of transference of anger of things that weren't, promises that weren't kept. And it was kind of like, don't do this. I don't have a propensity to do it. So what are you talking about? You're fixing what's not broken. And then there's different things that happen in the relationship that is like, I'm not a tug of war type of person. I'm not going to pull power from you. So in that regard, I think that was probably one of the bigger reasons why we didn't work out, is because I think there was a battle for supremacy, which I don't think, to me, it's more of a team. And sometimes I'm the quarterback and you're the head coach. Sometimes I'm the head coach, you're the quarterback. Depend upon the system. But if you always want to play this top position and I don't want to play it, I don't want to play your game. So that is so I did have a problem with intimacy there, Elena, there towards the end, in seeing that this person, I felt more like a son, and I felt like I was being treated like a son, and I didn't feel like that was warranted, because it wasn't even like a tit for tat. So
Wow, thanks for sharing that, Kyle.
yeah.
Anybody else want to open up this?
Well, when I think about emasculation,
well,
what
and
happened?
that's,
Wait a minute. So, what would you say, Cirilla, when you think about what?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So what I was going to say is that when I think about emasculation, it I don't know um, really what the goal is for the person that's trying to who's trying to deprive you of your masculinity in some way, some form. I mean, it's all about what's the goal here, right? When you start thinking about relationships and how to move forward through life, what's the goal? Are we on the same page? Are we trying? Like, are you? Do you think what you're doing is going to get us closer to where we're trying to go, or do you think that what you're doing is going to keep us in this same space or make us regress? I don't. I ask that about a lot of things. Really, it's like, okay, what's what's the point of this argument, right? What's the point of this discussion? Where are we going with this? Is one of the things I say all with this. And if your goal is to make why you may have achieved.
Okay, he went out. I don't know if he can still. Oh, he's gone. Um, I would say, I guess to answer that, I would think it would be control.
That's
Especially, the woman wants to control things. She wants things. If it's the woman doing the emasculating, she wants to control the man and what he does. She wants things her way. So I guess if she feels like she emasculates you, then almost like whipping you into submission. I guess that's the thing. That would be that would be my response to that.
yeah, that's
I'm
exactly
a,
what I'm sorry, what I experienced real quick is that control. It's like a fight for control. And I don't know, I wasn't in the fight, so I just didn't understand the need, almost like it wouldn't be done properly unless she did it.
What were you gonna say, Shay?
yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on that. Just like we have to understand the buck breaking for men and that sort of that dynamic, that history. We have to understand what women were left with in that. Going back to emasculation, so we're left with the fear of our man never returning. We're left with the fear of our son never returning. And so when you think about emasculation and the control and the power of it all, then you have to think about if I'm thinking about it in the sense of why I would do it, it was because I wouldn't want to be vulnerable because this man may never come back. My son may never come back. I got to stay strong because what if I got to be the one that comes out and I have to make all the money? Now, is it right? I don't think it's right, but I think that as partners in this, we have to be able to co-create, but we have to also be able to understand why it's there, and maybe that whole epigenetics piece of why women typically in that comfort level of being comfortable in mess versus being um, more comfortable in the mess than more comfortable in the peace and the harmony of it all. Looking at it, it just seems to be an interesting dichotomy of analyzing why women do it, and then they have to be willing, just like y'all have to be willing to um, let go of that stuff that goes on outside of the outside of the house. We have to honor that this is something that may happen, and we can't, because it doesn't build, we can't let it tear us down. So it has to be a bigger picture of what we're going for, what our goals are, and then the movement towards unity of because it has to be the family, unit of family, the man, woman, and the child in all of this. So that was my take on it.
Miss Brown I says, Cirilla, well, the actual word emasculate is to remove the penis and the testicles. So the interpretation is to have control and power over that man. I think she was answering, what
Yeah,
um
but then what are you really controlling? You're not controlling. Like, so I'm glad that she said it. Well, that's one of the definitions. The other one is to remove the power, right? To remove the vigor out of someone. And if the goal is to have that person perform better in the world, how in the hell can emasculation promote that? It's like there's just no possibility that tearing down a man can actually have the opposite effect of having him be a stronger person. I don't know where that happens. That's like saying, I'm gonna break down this gym, but I expect you to be stronger. And your ass ain't been you ain't been to the gym. Like how, that doesn't work. It's it's the wrong technique for the results you're looking for. If what you're looking for is for that person to be a better man, to be more intimate, to be a better provider, the best thing you could possibly do is to build that person, not emasculate them, right? But I do recognize that emasculation is a punishment that is often given to men who don't do what the woman expects them to do. And instead of figuring out why that person is not performing in the way that you would have them perform, your punishment is I'm going to lash out at you in ways to strip you of your vigor, because if you're not going to go out here and use it for my benefit, you're not going to have it at all. And so I look at it in a way that's just like, okay, I understand where it's rooted. All right, I understand why it was done then. I don't understand why it's done now, right? Because even if it was done to one person, let's say in the times of slavery, it was to serve as an example to the other slaves, y'all fall in line or else. All right. Now, how did the years go by where it became acceptable to remove to be the Delilah in the situation and cut the hair of Samson? Like when did that become your idea of how to strengthen a man? Like, and who says that that's the way to do it? I just don't get it.
I think, if to your point, it's like a protection mechanism for the children. So for the male children, you are raising them. Let me be strict with you so the world is not stricter on you. And then sort of it's that same type of energy. It's it's kind of a help. I want to help you do things my way, because I have confidence that my way will help us get the result that we need. But the deliverance, I mean, there's no way to deliver emasculation in a way where it's going to get the result that you need. So, but I think that's what it felt like to me. It felt like I was like, I'm not your child. My mom lives in North Carolina. I don't know how many times I had to say my mom lives in North Carolina.
But
You know what I mean? Pardon me?
but and to your point and to what Cirilla was saying earlier, if in my opinion, if a woman is emasculating a man, right, then the EQ must not be high and the IQ must not be high at all. Because if you are trying to sabotage your partner, what's going to come of that? There's this commercial. It's on Facebook, Instagram, where this woman is trying to concoct a poison to give to someone else. So she's putting all of the ingredients in it and she stirs it up. And then she turns around to taste test it and drinks it and realizes she just drunk her own poison that she had intended for someone else and falls dead. So when you start emasculating, and this goes for men, if men are tearing their women down as well and expecting them to come to bed and make love to them, you know what I'm saying? And enjoy the act and make them, I won't say feel like a man, because to be enjoyable. Well, how are you going to do that? To me, that's like putting your foot on the gas and brake at the same time and trying to make the car go, or the theory of putting your hand here and telling someone to come at the same time. Do I stop or do I go? So I have a medical question. And this is, if a woman is taking on the role of being an emasculator? Is this from the male gene or the dominant gene from the slave master? Or is this the result of something that has been passed down to her generationally?
Ishay, I think that's for you. Since you're the medical professional on here.
That once again, that's a God question. I don't know. I mean, it could be any array of things why people do what they do. The whole purpose of this is we know unease, we know uneasiness, right? And that goes back to peace, right? And so we have to not be afraid to first define what our peace is, right? And then if someone is disturbing that, we got to move on. I don't know because I didn't grow up with a dad. Full transparency, I didn't grow up with a dad. My dad actually kind of avoided, to say the least, avoided being a dad for money reasons. And so there was an incident where I had with a former partner of mine, and he asked me to get him water, right? And I didn't, with me not growing into dad, I had an all-female household. He asked me to get a glass of water, and my first thought was, "Why am I get your maid? What I look like getting you your water? You can get up and get it yourself." That was my first thought, and my logical mind was like, that piece was like, "Well, you right there at the faucet. What's it gonna harm you? What's wrong with you getting him a glass of water?" So we become in those type of terms. Like there would have been more disturbance with me doing all of this than me just understanding logically I'm there. Logically, I'm going to have some issues that I have to deal with to have peace within myself, to bring peace to another man, before I can have this harmony, which I love what Jermaine said as well. But Les, I don't, it could be I got it from the white slave master. It could be I got it from my epigenetics. Who knows? Who knows? But it's there. We know that it's there. And so how are we going to move forward in bringing resolutions and harmony to our household and our family and our community?
I think it came from Steve Harvey. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it did.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Chris, what's going
Good.
on,
Welcome
man?
back. How you
Hey,
doing
Chris, how you
today?
doing?
Doing good. I see we got a lot on today. We got a lot of people.
Cirillo, Chris is a dynamic poet, and he has a book coming out in May, and he has been blessing us with his spoken word and poetry. So you are in for a treat today.
He's our poetologist.
Yes, he's our poetologist.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that one.
So I follow Chris on Instagram, and he had a video, and it talked about using your smartphone to record your innermost thoughts. And I had commented and said that I had been doing that for a while. I call it my verbal journal. And I told him I didn't realize that other people actually did that. So I thought that was pretty dope.
Yeah, I call them self-absorbing sessions.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I require my clients, my coaching clients, I require them to do brain dumps either every evening or every morning. And whether it's with their smartphone or with a pen and pad or whatever. But I require that because when I'm ready to coach them, I don't need those thoughts running around in their minds. I need to be able to, them to be able to go back to it and refer to it so that we can make progress, right? And it's something about just transferring it from your head to another device that is recorded that helps your brain to actually start working on it subconsciously. So whenever you have a problem or anything like that, find a way to write it down, find a way to record it, because when you're sleeping, when you're driving down the street, your brain is already starting to do the work on that problem. That's what I tell them anyway. I don't have any scientific proof that happens other than my own experience, and my clients say that it helps them too. but that's a practice that I really do promote quite a bit.
Right. You ready, Chris?
Yes, indeed.
Right.
So again, I appreciate another opportunity. This one I have for you all today is called "Words Can't Explain." Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. The truth is, they do harm, with a sense of using them ugly. Words are powerful, therefore, the words I use compensate smiles, laughter, love, and understanding. The counterbinders within my universe echoes the equivalent reoccurrence by keeping them handy in a cycle, but only with outstanding action. Words only go so far. If you want to be a factor, you got to become an actor. Actions are monumental and very influential. Therefore, the actions I conclude can only amplify love. But I too overlooked the chain reaction within my turmoil, recognizing refrain from thriving was my seed within the soil. Repercussions handed down was this. Now, with this, I mean us, and with actions, I mean love. Most would say it's me and you against the world, but with love, me and you could change the world. We create change because that's what we are. Me and you, we know exactly what purposeful actions do. Everyone who senses us will equate this love as truth, fathoming, combining the computation of what's evident, then determine the clarification of love's concealed evidence. Love is a beautiful curse, and our love divided is the size of the universe. See, they know we're strong. It's because of our unbreakable bond. This is a virtuous force. It takes intentional effort with diligence just to understand, of course. Mastery is never the source. Now, with love, fully indulge as the apprentice, the protege, but be fully attentive while taking this lifelong course. Actions are the exclamations of your beliefs, mindsets, and values. Do do they coincide and meet halfway? Because the result is your actions will speak on what your words can't say, and that's why words can't explain. Thank you.
Nice, Chris. Chris, did you
Thank
already
you.
know what
Thank
the
you.
subject what the subject of this talk was going to be?
No, I did not. So I'm hoping I'm
Wow,
in sync. I'm hoping I'm in
wow,
sync.
you are in sync beyond what the expectations could be. Wow.
You know, um, Cirillo, the other day, Nikki and I were talking about the Willie Lynch letter. She asked me, did I think it was actual, factual? And I said no. Um, so I was talking about Chris, and I was like, Chris, can you rewrite the Willie Lynch letter? Because I would love to hear. He said, he's like, man, I can't do it in 2 days. You I forgot it was that long, but I would love for him to be able to rewrite, even if it's just a paragraph of the Willie Lynch letter, and it's just to hear how that would sound in 2021. Because I don't think they were speaking like that back in those days, you know. But I would love to hear that, and hopefully, soon, because this month is National Poetry Month, you
Mhm,
know. So, got a comment. It's
mhm.
another great piece. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the book. You
Yeah,
know,
me
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
in
me
I,
my
too.
I, I thought that was awesome. I really did. I thought it was I
thank
thought it was timely, relevant to the conversation, magically.
You should have heard the first one he did. What is it? What is it? WTF?
Yeah, can you do that one
IEAT.
again?
Oh, you want me to recite it again?
Yes, I love that's my favorite one so far.
Okay. I mean, yes, more publicity. Thank you. All right, let me pull that one up.
Miss Brown, I said me too.
Miss Brown Eyes. You haven't complimented me all
Stop.
day.
Because you keep taking 22-second breaks.
Thank you, Cirillo. Finally, somebody to snap back at him.
No, no. Wait 2 minutes to say 2 words. What you talking about? These slow ass nigga wanna. Good, good.
Okay, again, so this one is titled WTF IEHE, and that stands for is what the fuck is ever having enough. It took time to decipher when the truth was near. Now I can see you, I can read you very loud and clear. Go on, get away, I don't want you here. You're an illusion, a deception, a trickster indeed. I saw purpose in your ways in my earlier days. I see through you, no longer will you influence my ways. No matter if you were summoned, I don't care, goodbye. Because every time you're present, we're presented a lie. Bamboozle is the fool who is killed softly and choose to be content and die, and I'm led to ask why. Being misled by you, condescending principles. Like what the fuck is having enough when you're trying to survive and make do? What you expect me to do? Oh, to continue. To be gracious for scraps? Nah, fuck that. No thanks, I'm not for it. What you present is a trap. Your construct is a paradox within your subject's mind. And your concept induces that next to nothing is fine. Though it doesn't control, it limits them and confines to consistently accept what is other than sublime. Dealing with invisible parameters and limitations, which you forged made us hesitant of elevation. To say us, I mean sequels of generation, survival strife, and the cycle of continuation. Like what the fuck is happening enough when there's no reciprocation? Having no choice but to live life in moderation. We embrace turmoil uncaused by unrighteous tales, accepting plight with reality reflecting a living hell. Often, the reaction is to sit and dwell, believing that we caused this, so we might as well take it because someone has it worse than us. Not deliberate to knock the message from the missionaries, but we need what's due now and very necessary. But to tolerate for some time was less than necessary. It's not long to perceive the world as an adversary. It's imperative that you feel I'm not down with it. Because not now, not a person got a way to pull themselves up out of things to formulate a lot of plight when they fed the same shit. Damn right. I'm having a fit. Like what the fuck is having enough when kids are bred in it? Told that they're at risk. Mentally massaged. Just be okay with it. Unfortunately, we got hoodwinked with that mentality on multiple levels, and we think it benefits our morality. Condolences I give because it causes blind and fate fatalities. Why did it take so long to get that shit up out of me? So enough is not enough, despite if ignorance is bliss. Understand that your victimizing ass will not be missed, regardless if you're referred to as enough, fulfilled, or content in any context of my life. Your ass don't fit. What the fuck is having enough?
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Nice, 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 nice.
So
Thank
let's
you, thank you.
Yeah.
Miss Brown I said she's still waiting on the book.
It needs to be an audio book with a little bit of miles behind it.
Tell Miss Brown Eyes I'm not speaking to her right now because she didn't acknowledge me.
That male ego.
Yeah,
That was awesome, Chris. Thank you so much for sharing. Definitely.
Problem. Thank you, thank you. I'm gonna definitely tune in later to see, what the context as far as what you all have been conversing, to see how in sync I was. So I
yeah.
definitely look
I got a
forward to that.
question. I got a question about the second poem though.
Yes, sir.
That was in reference to whom or what group, or is that about politicians? Is that about you know
So
church? Like what is
yeah, so writing the poem, the context is literally systematic concepts that give some form of familiarity and comfort within enough, having enough, being fulfilled, being content or complacent. And it's multiple systems within, this reality that obviously massages us to be okay with just having the scraps. And obviously you see the, how the poem takes place is like, no, what you consider enough is never going to be enough in any context. When you're talking of racial injustices, police genocide, religion, obviously education, I don't care any way you look at it, finances, it's never going to be enough. Definitely not in the aspect of Black America.
so your goal is to get them to stop saying it. Like
Yes.
basically stop saying you got enough. Stop
Yeah,
saying it's enough. Stop saying because that shit is not real.
it's not real at all. It's
I
not real.
like that.
It's like, the sunken place for real.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. That's special, man. I like that a lot.
Again, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the next opportunity. I got to keep them coming now. Y'all got me in rotation. I got to keep these poems coming.
Yeah, you got. I see you do one with when you with a cigar lit up and just spit that shit like. And as I was saying, for all you, nah, nice job, Chris. I like that, man. Nice
Yeah,
to
no, I
meet you
appreciate
too.
it. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Do we know when in May it's coming out? And is it gonna be on Amazon? Like what format do you know will it be on?
I'm still formulating some things with my business partners. We're still
Okay.
trying to get some things figured out.
Okay.
But
Awesome.
I'm looking as far as mid May. Um,
Okay.
Preferably it might be end of May, but May, shooting for May.
How do
Awesome.
you want it, Nikki?
Huh?
How do you think? How do you want it? What would you want? When do you want this book to come out?
No, I was just asking for so that people who are watching will know.
I'm playing with
Don't
you.
start with me. Don't
I'm just
start with
gonna
me.
suggest you.
Well, with don't wait too long, man. I mean,
Oh,
just even if you had to put together a nice little site your own website, if you don't have it already, put together a PDF of things. Ask for donations, whatever. Give them a little sample. Hold some poetry workshops. Do whatever you can to put it in the hands of the people who can appreciate it as soon as possible. Is my encouragement, Ben, because if you're waiting for a graphic artist to put his touch on it, that might be too long. If you're waiting for somebody to lay it out on paper or whatever, that might be too long. The thing we have to learn to do as fast as possible. Not saying that you don't do this because I don't know you, but what we have to do is get our stuff copywritten and get it out of our hands as soon as possible. And it don't wait for it to be perfect because the words are perfect.
yeah.
If the words are perfect, then other people need to experience it. Don't wait. You
And the
know.
message is perfect too.
That's right. That's right. So I encourage you, man. Just don't let it sit on the shelf too long, and don't say, "Oh no, the color's wrong on the cover." Don't you know what I mean? I've dealt with quite a few folks who are on the creative side of things, and stuff gets shelved, and that's the worst thing that can happen for a creative. It kind of stunts your growth. So I encourage you to, man, just get it out there, man, any way possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Definitely put those words into consideration. Most definitely.
Awesome sauce.
Right.
Thank you so much for visiting us and sharing again.
Yes, indeed.
Hmm.
Again, the name of the book will be titled My Imperial Pledge. You can follow me on IG. I am C.L. Horton. You can also follow my other page, which is Compelled Concepts.
Awesome. I already follow you, so
And I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Um, Jermaine asked, will there be an audio version? If so, I suggest having bonus features, too, along with soundtrack for marketing. Look, we're trying to get you out there, Chris.
Yes, indeed. I'm loving this. Yes, these are
Our
compelled
viewers are
concepts.
hungry for it. So,
Yes, yes.
so Miss Brown Eyes says, do you go to poetry nights throughout the DMV?
Well, when I was home, I did. I used to go to Busboy and Poets.
Yes, I love
Me
busboys and poets.
a while back, me and my grandfather, we initially, guess you could say, established a poetry ministry within the church. But obviously, I no longer live in the DMV, so I'm out here in
Mm.
San Antonio. So
Well, if you ever come back, you gotta let us know.
I'm be back.
And
Most definitely
that, and,
coming
and
back.
that and that's a dope tree behind you too.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Les, thank you for introducing Chris to us. Um, his poetry, it helps brighten up, such a dark subject. So
Yeah.
thank you for introducing Chris to us.
Problem.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it again and again. Much love and appreciation. Thank y'all.
All right. I'll
All right.
I'll call you.
All right, y'all take care.
All
Bye, Chris.
right. Hey, um, yeah, this poetry is cool, man. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Definitely.
can we go back to Jermaine's question right quick about
Sure.
emasculation? Um, because you know we've been really talking about what emasculation does, you know, and the point of why they're doing it. But I don't think, you know what? I'm going to look up the etymology of emasculation, you know, while we're doing this.
Okay. So Jermaine says, what is emasculation rooted in? What are the pros and cons for the perpetrator? And that question is for those who are viewing as well. I want to know what your thoughts are. I'll leave the question up there again. What is emasculation rooted in? What are the pros and cons for the perpetrator? So I want to hear, what our viewers think of that as well.
In the context of this conversation and all of the twists and turns that it has taken, I think it's interesting to note that emasculation is not only something that's done to humans, but also done to plants to alter and modify um, their genetic representation. So, yeah.
That I think that's very interesting. Les, were you getting ready to say something, Les? I felt like you started talking and then you stopped.
Now, I'm actually looking up
Okay.
emasculation, the etymological definition, and it's basically
Okay.
what Elena said. You know, is to deprive, um, the act of depriving of vigor or strength. Strength. So it doesn't necessarily have to be with humans. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where I was coming from with what I was saying. It's like I can't understand the goal. I can't understand the goal. Like what are you really trying to accomplish by emasculating? And is your goal to get rid of me? Is your goal to get rid of my spirit? Is your goal to get rid of my whatever is annoying to you? Like I don't know, but that's the wrong way to do. And we were talking earlier about how do we, people do it as a protection mechanism for their kids. My kids, I have a 24-year old and I have a 20-year old, and they don't know that they can't do something until they fail at it. I mean, I have literally built them up to know that whatever they try, they can be great at it. It's just a matter of whether or not they want to. And they're surprised when things fail. So I don't know. I've tried to build their strength through separating limitations out of their minds. Um, and I think men operate that way quite often. You can see one man with one partner, and that person just kind of cower and just kind of doesn't really do. And then you see that person 2 or 3 years later with a new partner, and they are thriving and they're hitting every mark. You like, what the hell happened with this person? Well, no, that person now feels invincible for whatever connection they have with their new partner, and vice versa. It goes the other way too. You got somebody who's sitting on top of the world, and with one person, and then they may have been feeling themselves a little bit too much. They end up with another partner afterwards, and it's like, oh man, you. That's what to say. You went from sugar to shit. Like you, like, yo, what happened to you? Like, and I believe it is because I don't think everyone has that ability to speak life and limitlessness into people. And I don't think that is a woman thing or a man thing. I think that is just a human condition where you have those who are really trying to push their people and the people around them forward through life. And then you have those people who are looking at it like, if I push you forward, do you leave me behind? and and maybe if that's the case, I will do whatever I can to emasculate you, cut your vigor, because that's you running at a pace that's too fast for me. I can't keep up, and I don't like where you're going in those spaces, because I know that if you start rolling in those circles, I'm less than. So I think it's all these different things that play in the mind of why people choose emasculation as a technique of punishment, and as a hope for your vigor to actually leave you. They want you to be less ambitious. Uh, they want you to be more under them. They don't want you to sign. I mean, yeah, and quite frankly, in a more spiritual sense of the matter, if we saw each other spirit to spirit, we'd be trying to kill each other probably. Like you like, oh my gosh, your spirit is that big? Oh my gosh, mine is this little. Like, oh shoot. But instead of trying to figure out, well, how do I grow my spirit? How do I become energy that's bigger than my body? You would rather diminish someone else's shine so
Right.
that you all both are like, okay, we're all right. We kind of our body size, shine wise,
But
but
Cirilla, let me jump in right quick, because I think you was like, what's the goal? You know, I'm looking at why. You know, why do you want to emasculate me beyond taking away your strength, taking away your power? Why? Is it because that's what has happened to you? It's like the whys of why you're doing something. You know, why did you do that? Versus we know what the goal is. The goal is to cut down, to destroy, to build oneself up while destroying the other one. But it's why. Simon Sinek says, start with why. You know, um, so when I introduce myself, I don't tell people what I do. I tell them why they need a person like me, or why I do what I do versus what I do. You know, so I think and I like what you said, because you're absolutely right. You know, I want to know, why. Not I know what you did, and I know what you did it for, but why? Is it rooted in insecurity? Is it, have you yourself been emasculated? Have you been taught to emasculate someone? Why are you doing it? What's the purpose? Go ahead, Elena.
Okay, yeah, I want to jump in right quick. This is getting good. I
Cirilla,
mean,
you
it's been good.
often stop playing, man.
It's
Go
been
ahead.
good. No, but I think that so in the context of relationships between the black man and black woman, yes, sometimes we have this toxic cycle of emasculation. But going back to, I think it was the first thing that Nikki may have read about buck breaking. She said that, I think the first or the second line said the purpose was to make sure that strong slaves did not rebel, to basically keep the black people repressed and suppressed. And so you do that by attacking the strongest, attacking and disarming the strongest among them, black masculinity. And so I think that that's where all of this kind of, I mean, it does go back to slavery, but well, I don't want to talk about whether we're enslaved now, because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But when you think about like our current context, if the black man can be kept in a state that's lower than his potential and his created state, then he will always be subject to something or someone else. Um, I think that when you said the why, I do think that white men are afraid, deathly afraid of black masculinity. And I think that's why they target it so much, because it's something that they really do fear.
so I agree with you. I so I don't, in the context that we're talking about, I don't know that we're really talking about men versus women here. It's almost I kind of really would rather refer to it the way that Asian culture has with the yin and the yang, because I think we all have this potential of being emasculated from that perspective. Let's bring down that yang a little bit, give them a little bit more yin, you know, and it's not just black men. Just sure, we are the targets out front a lot of times of this assault, but you got some women who are emasculated. Just does it's not the right word, but it's the forces against their prowess, their ability to lead and to run the show and to do all these things. Their connection with the yang of their being versus the yin. I think we all have that soft and we all have that hard. We all have that, you know, that combination. And when it's all said and done, people are threatened by the person that displays the yang. I mean, that's just it. Is and if we can find a way to make sure that your yang never exists, then we'll do whatever we got to do. That's the way they think. That's the way it happens. And I really truly believe that the culturally we are looked at for our yin, our creativity, what our cultural contributions, all the things that make life worth living, right? We're looked to for that, but we do not want, or the culture, the society does not want us to profit from that yang. They don't want that. So I think that becomes a something that we actually can join in together, men and women with this, because it's a bigger problem, right? It's a bigger problem than just looking at it from the pure emasculating side of things, just the man being brought down or his vigor being removed. No, 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 no. The black people's vigor is being suppressed because they don't want us to take advantage of all the yin that we put into the world.
You can't
And
do one without the other. What's done to black men affects black women. Like, we are inextricably bound. There's no way to divorce us from one another. So I'm not a man, so I don't think I can be emasculated personally, Cirillo. But I feel what you're saying. There's definitely an assault and an agenda against black women as well. And I think that's next week's topic. So I'm definitely excited to get into that. But the other thing I wanted to lift up that is interesting is that emasculation is also directly connected to depression. And it's interesting how when you're not operating in who you're created to be, like the effects that can have on a person. And so, yeah.
no, you can't stop
Which
right there. You got to keep going with that
I
one.
know,
What are you,
right?
what are you doing?
but interestingly enough, going back to the whole prenatal piece and how that stress on the woman causes the brain and the body to be different. And so genetics states, like there are studies that say that when you're coming into when you're in a more stressed environment, you're more likely to be irritable. You're more likely to be depressed. So if we have a cycle of people or generations of people who are depressed, emasculation becomes an expression of that depression. So it's all kind of interestingly connected.
And then the fact that it's like genetic, right? Or the fact that when you look at the word and where it comes from, that it's linked to breeding and hybridization and genetics. So, you know, I'm just throwing this out there. Like I said, to me, I don't see a lot of men like my grandfather and my father. I'm not saying that there are no good men out there. Please hear me. I'm not saying that at all. But um, through time, then are we creating men that are further and that are even more effeminized. I'll use that word. You know, is feminization the new normal for Black men?
I have a question.
I think so.
So emasculation, deals with men. What is it called when that same process is done to women? Is there a term for it? Miss Vocabularyologist, what's the word for it?
Well, I mean,
I think we should just go with what I said earlier.
Oh, don't he sound like
right. Real
Lester
recognize real.
Lena?
No, hold on. To answer that, and before Elena jumps in, to answer that, emasculation, if you go back to the definition, is to take away the vigor, right?
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter if it's male or female.
Okay.
You,
Okay.
you understand what I'm saying?
Okay. I just wanted to know. I just wanted to know.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, I didn't want to emasculate Elena by saying that, so I just left. I'm
You
good.
know what, Phil?
I ain't stepping on
You're right,
that one.
brother. You're right, brother.
And listen, but for real, when you think about it, like you got to kind of approach this thing, part very serious, but also with a hint of levity too, because when it's all said and done, how we heal is not through serious talk all the time. Sometimes it is we heal through finding the humor in our crazy circumstances as human beings, and like the ability to laugh at something that's so absurd is quite healing for me. When you start thinking about, you're worried about what my potential is, and we don't even live around each other. We don't like, you worried about my damn potential. How about you worry about your own damn potential? And let me worry about mine. Don't emasculate me, because if you did that to me, it still has no effect on you whatsoever. Well, how stupid is that? It's like, and we're subject to that shit. And for that reason, I hate movies that show this experience time and time again of the Black plight. On the flip side of that, I'm really, really enjoying Black exploitation movies right now, and finding the levity in it, because what it did was it showed us a lot of what was happening at times when we were being heavily emasculated, and how we saw the world and what things look like through our lenses. At the same time, the fight scenes are fucking hilarious, but
I like what Jermaine said. Defeminized.
Look, that's definitely happening to women. Women aren't as feminine and soft as they used to be. That's real. Les, you on mute. You
You're on mute, Les.
have something to say, but we
I know
can't.
he over there having an aneurysm.
Leave that comment Jermaine said to next week.
Okay, okay.
Tell you something. Somebody gonna get knocked up talking about defeminizing, because then that may go back into, well, how you gonna defeminize me? Are you saying that, just because I have masculine tendencies that I'm being defeminized? So no, I'm not even touching that. Not at all. You know what? Have Jermaine on the show next week and let him.
Okay, okay.
We have to touch on it. We have to. We have to.
Yeah, Jermaine, if you got time next week, hit me up so I can send you a link.
Let me jump in right quick.
Let me touch on that real quick, defeminization, because you know how me and Les always roll in contrary. So what's important, defeminization to me is more of accepting of the divine feminine in what we have. And so that's kind of something that's being applied in a patriarchal society. So not necessarily it's being repressed or oppressed, it's not being appreciated, it's not being nurtured, it's not being grown. And so we are definitely, because we're asking to emasculate our men, and that's, we can pull or we can draw or we can pour, however you want to say, more out of each other, more out of myself, if I'm operating in divine femininity. And it doesn't have to mean I have to bring down my traits of what I can do, because I can change oil, change a tire, but I can also dress up and do some other things. And I can talk to my children, my spouse, whoever, in a way that is nurturing, because that's part of who I am on this planet. So it is important that we address it. We address it now to continue later, but it's a part of all of that.
Coming from the comedic science aspect of her.
Leave her alone.
No, it's cool. I mean, that's how we are. But you know what? I mean, I dig that because, I think Kelly, R. Kelly did this song called "Homie, Lover, Friend." You know what I'm saying? You're talking about the females, my homie, my lover, and my friend. And they played ball together, but they was able to do everything. It just wasn't I can't do this or I can do that. So I'm with that. I look forward to that conversation next week. And like Jermaine said, some are choosing to be defeminized. Yeah. But that's gonna be a hell of a conversation next week. Doctor,
and that's because we don't know the power of the divine feminine. That's why we chose. If we don't know our own power, we'll choose something different. If we don't know how to access that power, we'll always choose something different. Because we going on what the norm is. What the norm is white culture, femininity, feminism. But what do we know about divine feminine and feeding into that, other than what popular white folks are telling us? There's nothing to do with our African people, our African power. Comedic yoga version.
So, Shay, can you come back next week?
I was telling Les, I don't look like this all the time. I don't know.
Tap into your divine. Tap into your
This was a special. I can try. Oh, snap! I'm at work. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Hey, tap into your divine femininity. You can do all things. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Not when I have to go work. So I have to see it. May be timing for me.
Okay.
Timing.
Yeah. Dr. Joyce DeGroot said, the root of denial for the dominant culture is fear. And fear mutates into all kinds of things: psychological projection, distorted and sensationalized representation in the media, and the manipulation of science to justify the legal rights and treatment of people. That's why it's hard to unravel, right? Got it? So I was reading The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. And this is what it says. For those who've ever read that, it says, no man has a chance to enjoy permanent success until he begins to look in the mirror for the real cause of all his mistakes, Napoleon Hill, right? So I counteracted that. And I says, no black person has a chance to enjoy permanent success until he or she begins to look in the mirror for the real cause of the obstacles that were created to potentially cause all of his mistakes. Because, and I understand where Napoleon Hill is coming from with Think and Grow Rich, overcoming that fear. Fear is one of the major killers. It paralyzes us. But when we start talking about emasculation, I think that's in us. That fear, I think that fear will always be in us, even to the point, I don't know who said it earlier, was it Smoking said earlier that, or I don't know, but that black kids aren't praised out in public for fear that they're going to be targeted. So it's always a tearing down. And the black kids don't understand that. Why? And then black boys, because they don't have an emotional vocabulary until later on, when they finally get one, Their understanding is rooted in, mommy, why did you emasculate? My mother emasculated me, you know, versus understanding that they were basically trying to protect you. But it's the way that it comes across. The intent is one thing, but the way it's interpreted is something else. And I will not be taking 22 seconds off this time, Sorella.
After listening with Les and Shay, the point of if the white community is a patriarchal and we're matriarchal, you're looking at those differences there too, because we don't hold the same position in our community as the white man holds in his community. So they primarily know that they were, partly responsible in that regard. But then coming back to our community, we don't hold the power there. So, or fewer of us will say, hold the power and have a patriarchal family unit going. So if that's the 25% of the population, we seem matriarchal. We seem like there should be a woman leading the family because 75% of the time it is. So I think that's a part of this emasculation too, because if that is the community that we're all raised and grown into, it's almost like if a black man comes to a black woman, it's like, well, prove to me you should raise this, you should be the one leading our family, or because it's not normal, because the norm is the woman to lead. So I think there becomes at times a tug of war with the black man and the black woman having this tug of war over being patriarchal or matriarchal. And we're predominantly matriarchal, but other races are not. So maybe wanting to emulate that seems to be a natural progression for the man to lead is not so natural for us.
I think that kind of goes back a little bit to what Sorella was saying about the yin and the yang, a little bit. But shit, pretty deep. I like it. I sent you a message, by the way, Kyle.
I think what Kyle said is really, really on point. And as a man, I know that I've always probably, I don't know why, I've always looked for opportunities to push my woman into a space of honor, respect, and and just power. Not because I wanted to recede, but because of where I know I wanted to go personally. And I knew that I could not go where I wanted to go unless she was where I needed her to be as well. So it was almost like to not push your woman in that space diminishes your potential, right? Because you need that matriarchal cover over your family and your goals and your life, and you also need the proddings of that woman in your life, and also that encouragement to know that you can go out here and face those different things that we have to face, and it's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it,
But Sorella, I'm sorry, go ahead, Nick.
No, I was going to ask, when you push them, were they receptive of it? Because I know some women you can push them, but they're not receptive and they're not ready to receive it.
I haven't found one that was been receptive yet.
Well, Sorella,
that's why I asked that question.
Going back to the week when I did your name, maybe 3 or 4 sessions ago, and as you're talking, it's in you to push. That humanitarian side of you is there, and the challenge that we're having, because it's compounded. If it's not one thing, it's another, right? Because you may be pushing, But like Nikki said, you know, were they receptive of you pushing? As you said, you haven't found one yet. The challenge with that is that most humanitarians always gravitate to people that don't want to help. You understand what I'm saying? So what happens when you're pushing someone that don't want to help, right? Then what do we say? If your ego is fragile, you may like fuck that bitch. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's like one of the quickest responses. Or, you know, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. I'm going somewhere else. You know? But and so you got the energy components that we're dealing with the letters, the lack of understanding of who we are as a person, what our core characteristics are, the trauma that's associated with, you know, who we are as people. So it's a whole bunch of stuff. So when you take humanitarians like myself, you know, like yourself, and with all of those I's and R's in their name, right? The only thing you know about us is that we're pushing, you know? But what happens when you're dealing with someone that looks as though your pushing is being abusive?
Or you're not satisfied with who they are.
And
Right. Look, I couldn't even do it right. I was like, yes, that was perfect. But you know, Cirillo, but the thing that resonated with me when you said that is the fact that you keep trying. The fact that you haven't stopped. You haven't found one that was receptive, but that doesn't stop you from trying to push that woman further so that she can be better. And what I think people, and I'm speaking from experience, when you're not ready to receive it, it kind of falls on deaf ears, you know, or you get that, you know, why am I not good enough? But when you're ready and you have that humanitarian energy, someone who wants only the best for you because they know that when you're at your best and they're at their best, then we are at our best. And I have that now. So I commend you for, continuing, you know, to push and you haven't said, you know what, man, I'm done.
well, nah, but see, I disagree with that. And the reason why I disagree with that is because it's like a baby. Notice how when you run after a baby, the baby runs from you. And as
Right,
soon as you ignore that baby comes running to you. And that's how it is. The more you help someone, and you can't help nobody by helping. You know, what happens is as humanitarians, we become frustrated.
Mhm.
So what happens when we're spent? And then when we finally run across somebody that wants to help, we're tired. That's why, in my opinion, when women who've been dogged out, mental, they finally get with a good person, it's not that they can't treat them good. They tired. You know, it's like teaching an old dog new tricks. An old dog can learn new tricks. Old dog don't see the need to learn new tricks. They're tired. You know what I'm saying? I gotta learn some new shit.
I
I'm not
guess I,
ready.
I guess I disagree because, you know, without getting too much, my boyfriend was like that, pushing, trying to get that person, to be the best that they can be. And I guess I'm grateful that when I came along, he wasn't tired anymore, because he does that for me. He pushes me to be the best me that I can be, and we're he and I are a lot alike, so it's like we'll give you warnings. It's like, okay, listen, this is what I need. So I need you to do this, that, and the other. And then after so many warnings, we get quiet and then we're done. But I'm done with that particular person. So maybe it's, I guess, when you say that you're tired, if you come across someone who is willing to be receptive and you see that, would you still would you be willing to push at that point?
I mean, it's in my nature. My reason for being is to help. So I'm always going to help. I modify how I help.
Mm.
Because the problem with humanitarians, we become the problem, not the solution, because we're always over helping. You know, I don't need you to cut my food up for me. Hell, I don't need you to chew my food and spit it in my mouth for me. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, hell, I don't even need you to go to the bathroom for me. Because a humanitarian says, I'm going to the bathroom. You want me to go for you while I'm there? You know what I'm saying? You know, I mean, and what? I mean, seriously. But you guys understand what I'm saying, right? And but when you start talking about, so if you take a bruised ego man, a man who has a bruised ego, or he's been emasculated, and his nuts have been cut off, right? And he runs across someone and he's trying to help them. If he's helping for the sake of his energy, cool. If he's helping to get something, he's giving to get in return, and is not received, and it comes across harsh. I don't want it. I don't need you to do that for me. You know, he may feel emasculated, which may not be the case at all, if that makes any sense. You know, but with humanitarians trying to push and push and push, because it's one thing if your ladder is going up the wall. It's another thing if your ladder is going up the right wall.
So Miss Brown Eye says maybe he got to rest while he was with you, which allowed for his walls and receptors to be ready. That's a good point. That's a good point, D. Because you're not, and I guess D to I guess kind of piggyback off of that. There wasn't that fight there. And I guess that's the rest that you were talking about. There wasn't that constant back and forth, back and forth. It was, he could be himself with me. He didn't have to wrestle and fight and this, that, and the other. So he saw that I was receptive, and because I've been through a lot, but I also had therapy, which helped me to, unpack my bags. And I think that's probably, Cirilla, what was going on with the women that you were dealing with. Their mental bags haven't been unpacked. So you pushing them was just packing more and more and more clothes into that suitcase, and
But what the hell did
it
they
wouldn't
come?
fit.
Hold on. But what the hell did they come on the trip for? You understand what I'm saying?
A lot of people do that though.
You know,
They ain't wash them stank, dirty clothes.
I mean, who does that? Don't you
Well,
know? Dirty
well,
clothes more
but
weight.
the reality is that
You heard that, Lance?
in order to find a mate, oftentimes people present as one way, and
The representative.
yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt, right? And so yeah, they know who you need them to be, but they don't realize how exhausting it is to be that person,
Mm.
and so they put themselves in positions where you know all they had all good intentions, but when the work came in, it was like I know I signed up for this shit, but I really ain't signed up for this shit. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like I signed up for this shit, but for real, I ain't read the fine print. Right?
Exactly.
And the
Right.
devil's in the details, right? And really the best thing I could ever say for anybody, seeking a relationship is to figure out whether or not that person has the ability to see the vision that you see for yourself, and vice versa, and th- that shit is very, very complicated. It's very difficult to tear away all those layers to that onion to get to the stink. But the stink is that's the good part, right? It should be right. If that person was meant for a union with a person like you, I'm not gonna say that person was meant for you, but that person was meant for a union with a person like you. Getting to the stink is real good, right? But it's not that nobody wants to keep digging once the relationship is there, because for fear of, we might get to that point where I realize I ain't for you and you ain't for me. So they like get to a comfortable space, they stop digging, and then it's like, oh, okay. And meanwhile, they done linked up with a ambitious person that's like, all right, all right, all right, we're good, let's go, let's go, let's go. Or vice versa, you done linked up with somebody who's like just like, oh no, I'm pretty happy with the way life is, and I don't want to do anything else.
So Miss Brown and I said, Les, there are some folks who jump from one to another before you close that last door in hopes for that made bed to be much better than the messy one um, that they were sleeping in. And then she said they send out the representatives so they can close and get that position.
It's a life of misery though. Like,
Hmm.
why would you're in love with the idea,
And
and
I had to be honest about that in my marriage when it was ending. And I had told my ex-husband that I fell in love with the idea of being married, but didn't really realize the brevity of being married. So it was almost like a fairy tale type deal. So but I had to be honest about that, because if I wasn't honest with myself, I wasn't going to be able to grow.
then sometimes sex can just make your ass blind.
No. Mm-mm.
No, it
I,
can. It can blind. So sex, good sex, great sex, can make you
keyword, good and great.
okay.
Keywords.
Great,
Okay.
great, great sex
Preface.
can make you feel as though that can make you feel as though, oh, we can conquer any of our future problems.
Yes,
Well,
been in those relationships too, but
Like,
at some point you have to take those blinders off, those rose colored glasses, and then when you see that that is, that the only thing that y'all have is the bedroom. And I'm like, I've been in relationships where we're great in the bedroom, it's the other rooms of the house that we're messed up in, you know and if the only room in your house is the bedroom, that let me rephrase. If the only room in your relationship is the bedroom that you're good in, then you got issues. You got big issues. You should be able to be good in the kitchen, in the living room, in the basement, wherever.
I don't know how, but I think this ties to emasculation as well. I I don't know.
Elena,
Be-
she laughing. Why you laughing, Elena? What's up?
Look, I'm just laughing at Cirillo.
I just feel like it ties in, right? Because sometimes that may be the answer that that leads down these paths of unhappiness often, right? It's like, okay, we there was no need for emasculation in the beginning, and maybe I use that as a punishment for some reason or what have you, because you're not really vibing on the same wavelength as me anymore. I don't know. I
Can
have
I
to think
share?
about that.
Can I share something with you guys right
Sure.
quick? I know that the hour is getting late. Um, but is it okay if I share my screen right quick, Nikki?
Hmm. Hmm.
All right. So hopefully you guys can see what's on my screen.
Oh,
This.
hang on. Let me.
Oh, okay. Oh, great, great. Now you can see it.
Okay.
Um, so this statue, as you can see, based on looking at the people near the base, you can see that it is quite sizable. But it's called the African Renaissance,
Hmm.
um, and it's located in Senegal. But for me, this really just represents, if I don't know that I believe in panaceas, but if there was one that really speaks to the situations that we are in the midst of as a Black people, the assault, the emasculation of the Black man, the onslaught that the Black woman and child has to also deal with. I think the answer is family. And so I've always loved this piece.
Beautiful.
I don't know, I have to do a little more research on it. I'm not sure why they had it commissioned, but I do think it's a beacon of hope. I love how the black man is standing strong. He's
Mm-hmm.
holding on to his woman. She's right, but she's not literally behind him, but she's behind slash beside him. And he has his child on his shoulders,
And it's a
pointing
boy.
to the future, pointing forward. I don't know. I've always just been inspired by this, and I
That's
think
beautiful.
the way forward literally is the black family. And so I'm so passionate about these conversations. And so, yeah, it might get a little interesting next week when we talk about emasculation and the black woman. Um, but we have to support one another, man. This family, us being together, that's one of the ways that we move forward and we get
That's
there. So, yeah,
huge.
I just wanted to share that with y'all.
That's beautiful.
Well,
Um,
thank you. Now I feel like I got to go work out some more. So
You and me both.
this was no joke,
Hey,
right?
look,
thank you for emasculating me, Elena.
it's Cirillo.
Good.
It's Cirillo. Guess who I identify with? The kids. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That was beautiful, Elaine. I would
It
love to
really
have that in my
was.
house as a painting. That was gorgeous. That was
Yeah, that was.
absolutely
Let's
beautiful.
go emasculate. Kyle, how to make you feel?
Yeah, Kay Wiley, how did it make you feel?
I mean,
No, I love the point. I think Elena is totally accurate. The black family is the core of our strength, and there's power in numbers. So if we have these little segmented, small, two people here, three people here, and there's no structure, no unit, we're going to be powerless as a community, or it's going to be a lot harder for us to assemble to move forward. So I think it's a beautiful depiction of what we should aspire, for ourselves. If that's what you want to put.
So,
Yeah, that was gorgeous.
Mo says, we as black men need to stop pushing our women to the forefront and start standing and fighting on the front lines first. We also need to develop the mindset to lead and make sound decisions. Um,
Yo,
and
can I say something to that? I
sure.
went home this weekend. Well, yeah, it was home where I was born. I was born in Columbia, South Carolina. My grandmother still lives there. So I went to visit her. She's 96 years old.
Beautiful.
And she's a maverick. She is doing well, y'all. She's all right. One of the things that she said, just my mom was there as well, my sister. We were talking and kind of reminiscing on the past. One of the things that she said that impacted me so much, and I think I shared it with Les, she said that if my grandfather had listened to her advice on several things, that she wouldn't be where she is today. And she was grateful for all of the times when my grandfather chose to not listen to her, which is so interesting. Like if you knew my grandmother, she is definition of a strong black woman, strong headed, and she's very smart. So she's not a slouch. And this is not a conversation of whether a man should listen to a woman. Like it's not that deep, y'all, right? Yeah, I understand. Everybody should be involved in this process, and a man should be able to hear from a woman. But it was beautiful to hear me, for me to be able to hear her admit that, to make that admission that there were times where the best choice for my family was to yield to my husband. And even though I couldn't see it then,
Hmm.
I can look back and see it now. That meant a lot to me.
That is a lot. Listen, but you know what? It takes a strong woman to admit that. You know. So I
It takes a strong person, period. To admit, no, I was wrong as hell. I was I was about to
right.
lead I was about to lead the whole family off the cliff. like, like that's I mean, that's absolutely like, oh,
That's deep.
you getting ready to make some bad moves. Like, and but so I think the real testament to that statement for me is there was a discussion,
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
There wasn't one person making a decision. This was a discussion amongst the family
Mm-hmm.
and the heads of the family, and the decisions may not have always gone based on gone her way, but they were the best for the family. And I think that's the key. It's you don't make decisions in a silo that affects the whole community. You
Mhm.
don't make decisions in a silo that affects the whole family. We discuss it, and yeah, you might have to yield sometimes, or I might have to yield sometimes. But the fact of the matter is, shit, don't go out here and buy a new car and don't tell me,
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
because
real,
that was not conversation. That was decision.
you know,
I ain't saying that's
That's
personal. I ain't saying that's
right.
personal.
what kind of car was it? You know what I'm saying? No,
I
But
think it's
seriously,
back. It's
look,
to your point is excellent. And I think it leads right back to the statute is that
Mm-hmm.
women live longer than men. Men and men, I guess, are the protectors of men. Men forge ahead and do things that do jobs that women won't do or can't do. In that regard, a mix of both of the mindsets is going to help us progress that much further because men are a little bit more risk takers. So you could perish quicker or may not eat as well as, a woman would be more conscious thinking about what the kids are eating in that regard. So a mixture of decisions, will help the family out tremendously instead of y'all got to do it my way or y'all got to do it my way. And, oh, we raise kids like this. Well, we raise kids like, you know.
That was a beautiful story.
as for me and my household,
Right.
hey, that shit don't work no more. You know what I'm saying? It don't work no more.
like, how about me? How about I don't pay that light bill for you and your household?
You telling
No,
me in the dark.
no, it does work less because my parents are like that, and my mother's a hell raiser. I mean, I've been calling her that for years.
Your
But
mother
the
is
one thing,
is she? Your
um,
mother's she not young, is she?
no, she'll be 70 this year. So,
That's what I'm
um,
saying.
yeah.
So she has that old school mindset. You
But I'm
know,
saying when she was younger, she was a hell raiser, but she always knew when to yield, when to be like, you know what, let me let my husband take the wheel and go for it. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the things that I've always admired about her. And she might not have agreed, like Cirilla was saying, she might not have agreed with it, but she let her husband lead. She let him be the head of the household. She always respected his position. And I think a lot of times nowadays women don't respect that position. It's God, the man, and the woman. That's
if
just how it was.
if
Hmm?
if you subscribe to that, what about if you don't
True.
subscribe to that? Because you can
You,
have a man that comes in, look, God is in charge, I'm next, and then it's you, and then it's the kids. And she's like, nah, you know what I'm saying? I'm going first. You
and then,
know,
then, then y'all aren't equally yoked, in my
But if
opinion.
you're
That's just
married,
how
aren't
I
you
look at it.
one? Aren't
um,
you?
no, 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 no,
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
no,
Uh-oh.
no, 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 no.
Unmute yourself, Elena, because I know you gonna have something to say.
No. Change subject. Now, check this out. I'm listening to I was listening to Garland Nixon last week, right? And he's on his show comes on WPFW, 89.3 FM dial on Fridays, right? He was interviewing Dr. Wilmer Leon, and Dr. Wilmer Leon was talking about the time that he spent over in Iran, right? He was just talking about the people in Iran are really principled and people of integrity, you know. So a lot of the practices that are taking place here in the United States of America and as they spread abroad, they can't get with. And one thing that he said, all this, the whole interview, one thing that stuck out to me was this, and this is when I say when you're dealing in relationships that are clashing all the time, and there's emasculation and things of that nature. He said the Iranians have this saying, and I don't think it's theirs, but he says, "You may have the watch, but we got the time."
Mm,
You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
It doesn't, we're patient. You know, what he was making reference to is all of the things that have taken place, you know, in their country, bombings, killing of leaders, right? We're not rushing to judgment. We're not rushing to do anything. We'll get you in due time. You may have to watch, but we got the time. Because without the time, your watch ain't nothing but a bracelet. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of times, and I equated that into relationships. You know, relationships that aren't doing well. You have different agendas and misunderstandings and low IQ, low EQ. When one is trying to force their agenda, you know, and it's like you may have the watch, but one person may have the time. It would be best if both people or both parties, all parties, had both the watch and the time. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. And when you say we're supposed to be one, you're absolutely right. However, when you're operating, in my opinion, when you're operating in relationships and one party is going contrary to what the goal and mission and objective is, you're no longer one. You know, you're no longer one. Because when you're one, you're just one.
So you're
right?
making it sound like there is an agreement and a person goes off the reservation?
Basically. Basically.
That was deep.
So
I
I'm
like
deep.
that.
All
I'm
right,
deep.
you could take 22 seconds for it. And
I think I'm about to take more than 20.
Made my headphones fall off.
I gotta bounce. It's been great chatting with you guys. This is a good conversation
It
today.
has been. It has been. Thank you all for inviting me once again.
Yeah. Maybe
it was fun.
if any women who are listening, females, want to jump on next week when we talk about, because it's gonna get funky next week. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm coming with the thunder next week. You know what I'm saying?
Oh Lord.
I'm talking about you.
I'm gonna just be an observer.
Live
Look, we need to have Cirillo and Jermaine on next week. Cheese and crackers. Boy, them women ain't gonna be ready for that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's been great. It's been great. Thank you all.
Nick, can we wrap it up?
Yeah, because it's like so wait a minute. So Miss Brown now says, "Oh, I'm so ready." D, I wish you could be on the show, but I know you at work, so I know you can't. But if she wasn't, oh, she'd be on the show. She's I know she'd have some stuff to say. As usual, thank you guys, for watching. Thank you for your input. Really, really appreciate it. So we're gonna talk about the woman side of buck breaking next week and how it affects, the black woman and the family and all of that good stuff. So make sure you guys join us next week, Wednesday at 4:00. And with that, we're going to say peace out.
Peace, folks.